To order the Town of Superior work session for November 24th, 2014.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have two items scheduled. One is interviews for Planning Commission applicants and Advisory Committee applicants. The second one is the board's review of potential change in the minutes, how we record our minutes to go with the Granica software. The first agenda item is the interviews. We've scheduled 4 interviews with the town board for candidates interested in filling committee and commission vacancies. There are currently 2 vacancies on Open Space Advisory Committee, 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission, and 2 vacancies on the Historical Commission. We included in your packet copies of possible interview questions along with application materials that were submitted to staff. We have 3 applicants for the Planning Commission here tonight, 1 applicant for the Open Space Advisory Committee. The second applicant for OSAC was not able to make the meeting tonight or the meeting on December 8th, so we'll try to get them scheduled as soon as we possibly can. We're recording the interviews for any trustees that are missing so that they can watch it at a later time. With that, I'm just going to go from the order we have on the cover memo in your packet, and we'll start with Bob McLaren, who is interviewing for the Planning Commission vacancy. Yeah, please. Thanks, Bob.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for coming.
You bet.
If you want to maybe start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll let the board members ask you some questions.
Sure. I reside at 212 West Douglas Street in Old Town Superior. Been involved in the town board. This goes back in the 90s. Probably 92 to 96 comes to mind. When SURA was formed and the marketplace was developed, I was on the board at that time. And enjoyed it very much, enjoyed being some sort of a steering arm for the town, especially the residents of Old Town. I know that a lot of my neighbors have asked me to get involved again, and I'm doing it for them, but also I have a particular interest in what's going on with the town in terms of upcoming projects. I know that what's going on across the street is pretty major, and the Rogers Farm, which is sold, and what's going to happen and what's going to develop there. I know Chuck Oshner and his project going out west of town. As far as experience, I've been around construction most of my life. Since 1985 to present, I've been involved as a design consultant for restaurants, primarily not only in Boulder County, but throughout Colorado and beyond. My major accounts have been healthcare related, and I've done projects pretty much from coast to coast, not only in layout and planning, but working with architects, general contractors, and certain building officials, including health departments, so proficient in those areas.
Okay, great. Thank you. Questions from the board? Sure. Trustee Hansen?
So Bob, you mentioned you've been around town for a while. You've kind of gone down this road before. Why in the heck do you want to get involved again?
That's a good question. And at first I was asked by a few of my friends, neighbors, and I said the same thing, why do it again? But what I see happening is that Old Town really doesn't have a voice per se in the board, does not have a voice in the building area. And I know a lot of my neighbors and residents are concerned about long-term what's ultimately going to happen with Old Town. And so that's my primary reason.
Okay. And then the second question is that obviously you've been around for a while, and you probably have certain concerns around town and development of the Rogers property specifically. Could you separate yourself from what your personal opinions are to make the right choices and to do what the code says and everything with developers coming in?
Well, I know that town has ordinances and laws and rules that are formulated to protect the citizens, and I understand that, and certainly would not go down any other path than what's pretty much brought up, what's already been decided in terms of current ordinances. But to answer your question, I think I could. the big question I have is, we all need growth. We all want to see planned growth, but we also have to have, I believe, we need to have certain thoughts about how that growth is going to be controlled in terms of size. Old Town, as you know, is sort of its own breed. And, living in Old Town, I think that you can't stop growth, but I think it can be planned properly so that all parties are addressed.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Who'd like to go next? Trustee Surley?
So you've served on the board. Do you have any, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what the role of Planning Commission is, as opposed to the board.
Well, my thoughts on Planning Commission is you get a lot of proposals from various developers, and they're not always in the best interest of the people and the community. I'm not to say that, developers and planners aren't good at what they do, but I tend to think that when they're planning multi-housing properties, and Sagamore is certainly a good example of this, that proper planning includes being able to have enough space to be able to drive down the road, to be able to have cars parking, not only residents but visitors, as well as good use of the land that's being developed. In the commercial segment, we have to be sensitive to what's already here, and ultimately what's going to be good and what's going to be the best plan for the community, not just the developer. So it's a tightrope, and I think a lot of the ordinances and a lot of the procedures that are already in place, which I'd have to come up to speed with again, quite honestly, are there for a reason.
And do you have any specific priorities that you would have personally while you worked on the commission?
I can't think of one particular priority, no.
Trustee Pennington?
To me, the methodology of how you go about preparing for a meeting is very important. So to give me your sense of your style when you served on the board, how did you attack the packet? How did you get prepared for the meetings? And how do you anticipate having the time?
Well, I don't know what
that?
time is really involved in preparation. I think I asked the question, if not mistaken, to you, how much time is required for the Planning Commission or the Planning Board, and I was told it's a couple of times a month, but I don't know if that's meetings only, or are we talking about, boning up on ordinances and codes that are already in place, so that when you get a packet, you know what the process is. And I think that's what you're asking.
We've got two people here who have some recent experience with that can sort of give you that perspective.
Yeah, I probably would lean on that a little bit.
Good.
I'd be interested in having that dialogue.
Okay. Trustee Dozell?
Yes, I think it's not an inordinate amount of time to review the packets, I found when I was on the Planning Commission. But what's important is to actually dig deep and to do the research, because usually what we don't have is a lot of good, in-depth information about why and what the impact's going to be for the future. Because a lot of times we're asked to make a decision, I found, that is immediate. Everybody wants an immediate decision instead of thinking about the future. And for me, that's really what's important, is to hear someone like yourself who's been around and has history with the town, as well as knowledge, past knowledge about what's happened and how we've built into the town that we are, and be able to take that past history and the future and assess that with the immediate need. And I think that the reconciling the public, which is the town's interest, with the private interest is always the thing that we have to balance a lot of balls in the air. And asking good questions, because I find that we tend to want to accept everything that's said to us without asking the good questions. So it's really more of a question back to you rather than a question, or a comment back to you rather than a question, is that I would expect anyone who is a candidate for the Planning Commission to ask a lot of questions, because that's the only way then we can get good information to make the right decisions that's in the best interest of the town. And I think that that's what I want to see in a candidate, people who are willing, but also have the time and the energy to actually ask the questions and do the research. Reading the code, it's not that you have to read every page, I don't know how many hundreds of pages there are. It's really more understanding the process and going back and looking at code sometimes to say, okay, what's the requirement here versus what's being proposed? And you can look to staff for that, and that's what I would do too, is look to staff for that. But I think you've answered the question. You have the willingness, you have the time to serve, the willingness to serve, the time to serve. And I also think what's important for me is the historical reference that you have about having lived here a long time. Coming from original town is also an important thing, I think, too, to have people on the Planning Commission that represents that viewpoint as well as the rest of Superior. So thank you.
I'd pipe in just, specifically, there's 2 regular meetings a month, the first and third Tuesday of the month. And so you need to plan to be available at those meetings. I think they start at 7. And how long the meetings are depends upon what's coming forth. The town center meetings were quite long. Some things might be less. Another important thing on top of everything else you should know, but really instrumental to the Planning Commission, is the town's comprehensive plan, because everything that's coming forward should in some way fit in with the comprehensive plan, and if it's deviating, we have to intentionally know we're deviating and make that decision that that's what we want to do or not want to do.
Well, I remember when I served on the board as a trustee, the comprehensive plan was certainly, criteria for making a lot of judgment calls. And so I need to bone up on what the latest one is.
Yeah, that's really important to you.
Sure.
And the staff should help you with that too, as far as compliance of proposals with the current comprehensive plan. Because we can change the comprehensive plan, but we got to know we're doing it intentionally.
Sure.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? You have any questions, any additional questions for us?
Well, no questions, just that, we're all active in a lot of different things, and I know as trustees and as mayor, this probably isn't the only priority you have in your life. I serve as a leader for the Knights of Columbus State Council, which does take a little bit of my time, but certainly I've done some soul searching, and I don't see there'd be a problem in making those meetings.
Okay, sounds good.
We do
One final
typically.
question is, do you have any potential conflicts of interest? We ask this of all the candidates.
Well, I will tell you that I am working with Chuck Oshner on a business matter, but it's nothing concerning his property.
Okay.
He owns a couple other healthcare facilities that we work together with him on. I don't think there's a conflict of interest there.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, thanks for your time, and we'll be interviewing the rest of the candidates, and the next meeting we'll be making a decision.
All right,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
So next is Anthony Stewart. He's our second Planning Commission candidate.
Good evening.
Good evening. So same routine, Anthony, if you wouldn't
Certainly.
mind letting us know a little bit about yourself, and then board members will ask some questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come in this evening and speak with you. I am Anthony Stewart. I am an 18-year resident of the town of Superior, and I know many of you through a recent campaign for town trustee, which I came up a little bit short on. However, that campaign kind of revitalized me, gave me new energy, and have me look at our community in a whole different light. So that's why I'm here this evening, to be a candidate for the Planning Commission. The people that I met going door to door during that campaign, as I said, inspired me to serve the community in a whole new way. For about 15 years, I've been a youth sports coach for Superior and for various youth teams. Also, while out, I met many neighbors who were interested in services for older adults in our community. And older adults, as well as youth, are kind of my passion. I own a small business that provides services to older adults. We do consulting and home care. And I am the executive director for that business. So one of the things that I'd like to see is more services and programs for older adults in our community, and have the board look at providing an avenue for that. I do have quite a bit of experience serving on past boards. I was under the board of directors for the Mental Health Center of Boulder and Broomfield counties. I've also sat on the board for CALA, which is the Colorado Assisted Living Alliance, as well as on the board for the Foundation for the Joy of Caring Assisted Living Facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions from the board? Who'd like to start? Trustee Dozell?
So what, I know the campaign revitalized you, and I think it did. It was actually good for all of us because we got to go out and meet a lot of our neighbors again. So what interest do you have in building, in construction and development and things like that? Have you ever been engaged in anything like that?
I have, yes. The interest that I have is, and the experience that I would bring to the Planning Commission is that I grow and build assisted living facilities for older adults. So I have been involved in the process from stage one, beginning, to completion, licensing, and getting residents into those facilities. So I do have an interest in building and would like to see something like that come to our community.
Okay, yeah, because when you're talking with the Planning Commission, we're usually talking about rules and regulations and construction and plans and plats and contracts and all that kind of stuff. And so if you haven't had an opportunity to review a lot of that documentation, sometimes it gets a little overwhelming at the beginning. So that's good to know that you have some interest in that. And again, for me...
And I'm sorry, not only interest, but experience in doing that.
Right, exactly, in experience. And for me, it really gets down to your willingness to serve, which obviously you have, and your time that you have available to do that. And you, I think, have ability then to make time for the meetings and to review the documents that come, the packet that comes along with the meeting.
I would absolutely say yes, that I do have the time that it would take to do that. As I mentioned, I am the owner and executive director, so a lot of that work I can pass on to my subordinates should I need to make additional time to review packets or get additional information regarding any of the Planning Commission meetings and agendas that are coming up.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, and I'm a little bit froggy here, so I apologize.
You sound
fine. Yeah, you sound fine. Thank you so much.
Trustee Hansen?
Yep. So I'm really glad to see you back and trying to be involved. I thought you were a really good candidate for trustee, so I'm happy to see that you're back trying to be involved with the town. Sometime, I would assume, over in the last 6 months or so, you saw something, you heard something happened in town that made you decide that you wanted to run for office and now be part of the Planning Commission. I'm assuming. Is that the case? And if so, what is it? And if not, then what do you think is some of the biggest issues that we need to resolve that, as a planning commissioner, you would be able to play a part in?
Right, and I can answer that in several ways. I think first, we are in an exciting time in Superior right now. There is a lot of potential for the evolution of our community and for the growth and development of our community. So that was really one of the things that revitalized me, got me interested again. In addition to that, I said I've coached youth sports for 15 years, and part of that was coaching my own children through that process. They're now getting older, and so I'm maybe not going to have the same opportunity to coach them as I had in the past, and now am interested in finding a new way to give back to my community. So that's kind of where I'm at with that and why I'm looking at entering this.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
I would
Trustee
normally
Payne.
say it's a big leap from sports coach to active involvement in town affairs, but Chris would say it's not that big a leap because he's done it.
Coaching 8-year-olds is a little bit harder sometimes.
So was there, what about town matters? A lot of us got involved because there was something near and dear to us that caused us to become more activist. And now we're here. Was there some catalyst, other than your kids getting a little older, et cetera, and you seeing?
Absolutely. So this really isn't a huge leap for me. I've been kind of involved in town politics for some time. I was quite involved in the redistricting that occurred several years ago, or the attempt to redistrict our
Statewide?
Our statewide, yes, and as well as local. There was an instance where the state was looking at revamping House District 33, and I became quite involved in that process and worked hard to make sure that our needs as a town, as a community, were brought to the forefront. The other thing that's happening for me is that I serve older adults, and as I look at our town, there are quite a few programs available for youth and children, and kind of even to some extent younger adults, but there are not very many in place for older adults. And that's one of the things that is near and dear to my heart that I would like to see brought to the forefront of attention and concern in our community.
Trustee Sorelli, you have any questions?
No, I don't think I do have any questions.
Okay. Any?
I think you answered my questions with your introductory on what you thought were the issues facing the town.
Mr. Stewart, any questions for us?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, great. Any perceived conflicts of interest? We asked that of all the candidates just to see if you might have any business dealings that might perhaps be a conflict of interest with things going on in the town.
No, none that I'm aware of.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be completing our interviews tonight and making a decision at the next meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lisa Skumantz is our third candidate for Planning Commission.
Right height. My name is Lisa Skumont, 762 El Dorado Drive, Superior, Colorado. Mayor and trustees, I'm pleased to be able to I've get to know you over the last few years, and I'm pleased to submit my name as an applicant for this committee.
Thank you. It's interesting, me being here interviewing you. 6 years ago, you interviewed me for Planning Commission, and now I'm interviewing you, so it's kind of an interesting turn. So, questions from the board?
We all know your background, we know you, so we don't have to. And we know you know the stuff that's going on in the town. So I'm going to go right to the crux of, I know you're also interested in RCAC and Planning Commission, and is that an either or? Do you have druthers, or is this something you want to do instead of RCAC later on? Well, there's no vacancy in RCAC, I guess, but.
Sure, and I'm happy to express my
Yeah.
interest in what I want to do in Planning Commission as well, but.
Yeah, both. I'm really interested in that, but I'm
All right, but-
interested in how you're playing off. Yeah.
So, for many years, when I was on the RCAC, when it was WDAC, they had alternates as well that sat in the room and, you know, paid attention to what was going on, and then as vacancies came up, they were sort of available to fill those vacancies. That's sort of what I was thinking might be nice, and then we wouldn't have gaps and vacancies and that sort of thing. So that's, and I would like to do, I'm interested, very much interested in both.
Okay. Do you see any particular role that Planning Commission offers that you want to be involved in as far as the town moving forward? Is that fulfilling something in particular for you?
Well, I guess sort of what I was going to mention as an introductory sort of statement about it was that why I'm interested in this committee is because I think it's a terribly important committee. It's among the most important, I think, that the town has. It has long-term and lasting effects. And mistakes and missed opportunities last a long time, and I think it's with implications of millions of dollars. To me, that's really important, and I would like to be able to help apply sort of my detailed approach, my background, my understanding of my long historical view of this, my knowledge of the planning process, and my experience that I have gathered over the last many years to this committee. I think it's a really important committee, and I want to be able to apply that experience and to be fair and thorough in my review of what comes before the Planning Commission. I think that the committee has a certain role and as a feeder to the town board, and we can do the fact checking and the conformance checking and explore options and raise questions and see opportunities that are in the best interest of the town before it seems like it's almost too late, or you know, when it comes to you it's rush or whatever, and you've got a million other things that you're worrying about. You have to worry about the flood and the plowing contract and 5 other things at the same time, whereas the Planning Commission very much focuses. And so I think everything that comes before the Planning Commission I would consider on each development on its merits and how it conforms with the rules, and do so under the sort of overall rubric of the best interests of the town. That's sort of what I want to be able to do with the committee. I'm familiar with the comp plan, the planning, the building codes, the reviewing documents to make sure they meet specifications, and both from my experiences to town board, but also HOA and the reviewing some of the architectural committee things. I'm familiar with the expectations of the town as far as buffers and the things you have to worry about water and ponds and all the rest of that, and open space and the rest of that. I'm familiar with the comp plan, and particularly I'm familiar with the expectations about for the development of town center, having been deeply involved in those discussions, agreements, trade-offs, deadlines, requirements, parking, and all the rest of that jazz. And I've also dealt with the Planning Commission members in the past on other matters, so I have a really good respect, I think, for the backgrounds that each of them bring and the experience that they bring and the perspective that they bring. And I think I bring a different perspective to it than many of the others, and that makes a good balance. I think it's the Planning Commission lost a tremendous amount of experience since Joe left, since Rita left, and since Clint left. I think that being able to come in with a lot of that background and having watched the process and watched the agreements and discussions and evolution to date, maybe I can help fill some of that experience back in. I do my homework, as you know, and I come to meetings prepared to ask questions, and I'm not too shy to ask questions, and I bring experience, and I'm also, I can push back when needed and compromise when it's in the best interest of the town, and I'd really like the chance to continue to provide some oversight and input in the area, since I had so much chance to learn so much on the town as when I was part of the town board. I like giving back in a civic way, and this is one of those things I think is really a good fit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee Pennington.
I actually think we're presented some interesting choices here tonight. I'm really encouraged. I am a big proponent of experience in other aspects of town affairs, committees and whatnot, when one is selected for the Planning Commission. So I do think that generally works well, although it's certainly not an absolute requirement.
I think this is, of the committees, this is the sort of the
Right.
pinnacle and the one with such import that.
Right. So having been on this side of the dais, what comes to mind in terms of just opinions about the Planning Commission and what specifically you would bring to it to address, I don't know, are there any conclusions or any thoughts you have about the utility of the Planning Commission to the board, how that could be augmented? I'm certainly looking for a helping hand that is
That's what I was
that is
looking for.
thorough, et cetera. I don't want to lead your
That-
answer.
No, that's right where I was going to head, because that's what, I try to put myself in the position of, if I were there, what would I need? And I feel like I'm really qualified to get an idea of what it is you need to move forward, because you can't do everything. No one of the people on the committee can do everything. No one of the persons on the Planning Commission can do everything. But I think that, given the fact that the Planning Commission people sort of get to focus on a thing, an issue, a box, really helps, and being able to drill down and then say, hey, did you recognize, in our minutes or notes or however you want to characterize what the product that we provide along with the vote, give some insights to say, this doesn't quite meet here, you should be aware of that, or it didn't meet here, we were able to provide some trade-offs. You guys can use that as a leap to get more trade-offs, to do things even more beneficial to the town. I think that's kind of where I look at it. This is sort of a bite at the apple of saying what meets, how can we do better for the town, and you guys take it from there as well. But if I think that the Planning Commission did a great job, but there are times I wish I had gotten a little bit more information even, and that's what I'm going to try to do.
And the other question was, I guess, personalizing it, after having served 8 years on the board, I would think I might need a little break. You, however, seem quite enthusiastic and full of energy. Are you ready to hop right back into it?
I always say, if you want something done, ask a busy person, and that's kind of where I see myself. I like to be busy and stay busy, and inertia is a big problem for me. If I stop, I stop, and then I don't it's hard to get going again. So I'd rather just sort of keep going. That's my preference.
Okay.
And I don't know. And so on the side of the, do you want me to go into a little bit of detail on the RCAC thing question?
I don't think you need to.
Okay. I do want to say that I think I have a pretty good sense of what you were asking for in terms of work plan versus oversight document and all that. I think I can help bring the committee develop that sort of thing, as well as one of the reasons I'm interested in getting involved in RCAC. I've been off a couple of years in terms of being able to really participate, but not only do I have background in solid waste, which I think you all are quite aware of, but I also have years of experience in energy and also in sustainability issues, including air and other things like that. And while I have national expertise and some international expertise as well, and have won awards for that, what I really like is working on local solutions to within that, and try to walk the talk locally, not just nationally, and not just sort of puppety, but sort of really getting there and getting your hands dirty and doing it locally. So that's kind of what I like. I'd be honored to be named.
Okay, thank you. Any perceived conflicts of interest?
On the Planning Commission, I can't think of any. I've built a couple of houses, so I have a pretty good sense of it from the bottom up, but I really, I think there are things I'll bring, and there are things that the existing and to-be named members will also bring, and I think what I've seen provides a pretty good mix. On the RPAC, I have no conflicts I can think of. I don't gain anything. I just try to bring my knowledge, which is what we all do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Then, the one applicant we have for the Open Space Advisory Committee is Jim Heidel. Jim?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees.
Great, thank you very much. Why don't you maybe start with a little introduction about yourself, and then we'll go through a few questions.
Sure. When I first came to Colorado to work in the early 80s, there was a lot of open space, and I sort of remember, you can go between Denver and Boulder, and all you saw were fields. I moved back to Superior in 2000, been a resident of Superior since 2000. Of course, the area changed a lot in those 15, 20 years, but what attracted me to Superior in part was the open space, and I thought the community was a very nice balance of open space. As professionally, I work mostly in the energy field as a consultant. I'm an engineer and a finance person by background.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Pennington?
So why open space?
I think what interested me in Colorado, I lived in Montana before I moved to Colorado in the 80s, but I enjoy the open space, enjoy the outdoors, just very interested in preserving open space, so definite bias towards preserving wild areas, open areas.
I'm the liaison for the Open Space Committee, and they're actually in a bit of a struggle these days because the original charter of identifying and promoting the acquisition of certain parcels has sort of been accomplished, except for one large parcel in particular and maybe a small parcel or two. So I'm interested in sort of your broader picture or a vision you might have about what is still out there to be accomplished for the town of Superior in terms of open space related priorities.
Well, yeah, I agree that the work that was done in the last decade, doing the plan was an impressive piece of work, and a lot of money was spent and a lot of money has been committed. So going forward, I think we want to look for opportunities where there are buffer zones or some critical pieces of open space, and I think as the amount of funds that are available to do more work in open space is limited, potentially the work has to shift a little bit more towards stewardship of existing open spaces, and also just balancing the interest of the open space. Because open space has many attributes, from protecting wildlife, recreation, view, and a lot of different things, different attributes, and to try to balance those attributes and make sure we serve the interest of the community, the diverse interests of the community.
Okay. Trustee Dozell?
Yes, I was happy to hear you say stewardship, because I think that to me is what's facing the Open Space Committee, is to manage what monies we have left, and also how do we maintain that open space that we already have. So it's really, and to get the most out of it, as you said, the most benefits for the people of Superior, but also the wildlife and all that kind of thing. But I think, the excitement of buying space gets all the glory, and then all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, now what? Well, because a lot of people are asking that question, now what with open space? So to me, again, I'm making more of a comment that I would expect the candidate that's interested in open space today to be more interested in how do we maintain this for the future, and how do we make sure we have the money to do it, and where does the money come from? What do we do with the tax that we have for open space and all those kind of things, and then give that recommendation or those recommendations back to the staff and to us on the board if we need to make action or take action about that. But for me, it's we have a few small pieces yet that we could consider. Well, some of them people would say would be big, but primarily it's not so much to get excited and get caught up in the excitement of buying. It's more now into stewardship and management of that. So I'm happy to hear that, and especially if you have a finance background, that's helpful too. A lot of people just don't get the numbers. of things. And so, and I'm a big advocate of making sure we understand the fit financially of anything that we do. So I would hope that you could provide some, or let me ask you a question, do you feel you could provide some insight to the committee about the financials, the fit, the open space fit of the financials that are necessary in order to buy and maintain open space?
I think I can. I mean, professionally, it's always about use of, limited resources and looking at the amount of funds and figuring out where to allocate those funds. So I have the technical expertise to do it, and I hope what's probably more important is I have while I'm very interested in open space, I have an open mind and understand that there are a lot of different interests in the community with regards to the use of funds and even sort of the perception of what open space versus recreational space and the needs of the community are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other?
You actually answered my questions.
Okay.
I don't have any.
Okay. Thank you. Any perceived conflicts of interest that you might
No,
have?
I do not.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time, and we will be making our decision at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Mayor, the next item is the online board meeting minutes software. The town board indicated at a previous meeting their interest in setting a time to review options for implementing an online meeting minutes software that's available to the public through the town's website. The town's current meeting video hosting service vendor, Granicus, is able to provide this software for meeting minutes as a module that would be in addition to the service that they've already provided for us for the online viewing of our town board meetings and planning commission meetings. This firm provides software to a number of other communities for meeting minutes. Golden is one of them, and we provided in your packet a screenshot of what that looks like. Martin's going to go over, just show you those screenshots real quick. This would replace what you're typically used to seeing in your packet as far as meeting minutes.
It would replace?
It would replace.
Okay.
So the minutes that you get now, which are very detailed, that Phyllis does, spends a good amount of time on, would be replaced with these minutes. So I want to make sure everybody's clear on that specific item and that we have a consensus that this is the way you want to move forward. So with
So
that,
she would spend a minimal amount of time then? On
well, there less time, but she would still need to spend some time on these. Martin can go over it with you, but during the meeting, she'd input some stuff, but then she'd have to go back and supplement that too as well. So, Martin?
Thank you, Martin, to the town staff. So just to build a little bit on where the town manager started. So what the town does now for Granicus software is use a video module, through Granicus to replay the entire meeting. So when you go to the town's website and you click on View Meetings, you come to this page when you pick your meeting, and you can have the entire video, and you can scroll to individual segments of that video that are time-stamped, and then you get one packet that is the entire packet. And as you all know, sometimes that's 100 pages, 200 or 300 pages, depending on what's on there. So a big change would be to use the software in a different way. This is the City of Golden's website, just as an example. So it's the same kind of video box, but instead of having one entire packet, what the City of Golden has chosen to use is have an online agenda and minutes all together. So the agenda is on one page, and you can scroll to individual items and see the attached packet materials, whether it's resolutions, ordinances, or other items that go with it. And then for the minutes, they're time-stamped and they're associated with a piece of the video. So when the Pledge of Allegiance starts, you see the video come on, and then the town clerk and the staff there capture who's there and go through the different elements that are captured in traditional meeting minutes. And there's some scalability to this. This is a software that has fields that get filled in. So the level and context and detail that the board and town manager are interested in having could be included in this. The way the City of Golden does it is to have the individual resolutions and whether or not they were approved. And then there's some detail that's traditionally associated with meeting minutes that's captured within within the body of this, within the body of this software. It's not a
But
separately
if you,
created.
but if you're looking for more detail, you would click on the link, and that would take you to the video, and then you'd listen to the video of the
Who
discussion.
provides this limited detail? Is that somebody from Granicus doing that? or
That would be Phyllis.
Okay.
It would be
So
staff.
Phyllis isn't getting a free ride here.
No.
No, Phyllis's ride would just change a little bit after all these years. So as somebody wants to go through, whether it's a citizen or a board member or a staff member wanted to go through and see what happened over the course of a meeting, there would be some narrative included with each of the agenda items, and then there would be links to the ordinances themselves that would come up, if it comes up. And then you could see the individual pieces of that ordinance, and then the video would start, and you could hear and follow along with the video, and then also with what the packet materials are included. But any minutes, anything that was captured as a result of the dialogue would be typed in and would look a little bit like that. That's how the City of Golden does it.
We're kind of limited on time, so the board would
Yeah.
like more detail. I'd like to hear what the board's thoughts are or questions.
Who'd like to
Do
start?
we call, you're
Trustee
calling
Pennington,
us in
yes.
work sessions? We're trying to do this right now.
Yes.
Did you talk with the City of Golden, and I hope you did, or Walnut Creek or whoever? Why did they choose to go this route?
I didn't speak with their staff individually. I think Nadine Smith and some of the other folks on town staff have called the folks who work with Granicus and some of the account representatives, and I think have chatted with some of the other folks about their individual experience. But no, I haven't spoken with them personally.
Okay, so what's your understanding of why go this way, and why did they make a change?
I think a lot of the information that I've seen, both in the Granicus materials and also that staff has learned from the folks who handle the accounts for the different jurisdictions around this area, like the idea of having a timestamped video log that has some scalability associated with how much information is actually included in the minutes. I think one of the biggest motivations for each of the jurisdictions is to use technology, number one, and then have some transparency and some ease of functionality is kind of the IT word, but the ability to find an individual packet item at any point and go right to where that video is, and then also be able to capture in narrative, in text, next to it, the outcome of that dialogue, the outcome of that policy dialogue. So it's really a little bit of both. Just segueing away from having long narrative minutes that are associated with the video that you have to try and hunt and peck for, link them all together.
Well, having sat through this presentation at CML, what my takeaways were, they want to let the audio stand for itself. Nothing is more accurate than the video of the meeting. And they've actually augmented it from the one I saw. The one I saw back 4 years ago was more focused on the stuff in the blue, which is the action that was taken by the board and who was yay, who was nay, who was absent. So I don't recall the summary part of it. So it seems to me like they've sort of grown with the program and now put that summary in there.
Sure.
But my recollection of it was that the point was, if you want to know what went on issue A, you click on issue A, it gives you the summary of the vote, who was for and against, et cetera, and then if you wanted the detail, you actually had to listen to the video. And again, the reason this approach is one I've really seriously asked us to consider is because it is humanly impossible to capture in text. You know, Phyllis has more experience than anybody probably in the metro area with it, but it is humanly impossible to capture intent and tone and intonation, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing's better than the video. So that's my interest in going with this approach.
Sure, I think the nuance of the dialogue, I think, is what the town manager was interested in giving y'all an option to
Right.
think about with this technology.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes to kind of get our rest of our thoughts out. So, Trustee Swearing.
Just a question about archiving. How will these be archived, and what's the, are there any limitations to archiving video? What are our requirements for archiving as they exist now? And
So, there's no limit on the amount of video that we can record and keep through our vendor Granicus.
so they store it then?
Yep. And then it's also listed on the website. And then our policy is to retain all the video, and we don't have, after 10 years, we don't get rid of any videos.
And then just to follow up on that a little bit, if the town were ever to use a different vendor, no longer work with a particular vendor, we would get all the information, the data, and the video that the town manager is referring to, we'd get that in a generic file format, and then we could take it to a separate host or a separate vendor to use.
Trustee Hanson?
Yep. So we can determine what links we're going to, or what we're going to highlight that will be a link that we can go back to?
Mm-hmm.
Because what I see up here is really no different than what we have. You have number 2 on the side here, approved work program. What we currently have, we can click on that and go right to that in the video.
Yes.
The same with public comment. We can click on public comment and go right to that portion of the video.
Mhm.
But what
Yeah.
we can't do is, once we get to that section of an agenda item, then we've got to watch the video all the way through. So if I'm understanding correctly, we can actually make it, every meeting we're going to highlight what the vote. So you can click right there and see what the vote is in the discussion during the vote.
Well,
And then you can highlight other things that we might think are pertinent for every single meeting that should be highlighted that we might want to go back to easily instead of having to watch the whole agenda item discussion, right?
well, pretty much. So 2 things. What's collected after the end of a decision and the dialogue among the board members, if there's yays and nays, they'll be captured here. And the City of Walnut Creek does it in a nice format where they use a camera icon, and then they also have attachment icons, pieces of paper for the separate attachments. And then when there is a decision, when there's a vote taken, if somebody doesn't want to watch the entire video, they could look at these minutes, the minutes that are captured in this module, and then see who voted and how. So it lists at the end of it what the motion was. This is for, I think, for a budget, who the yeas were, and then all the attachments were underneath. So if somebody wanted to watch the entire video to try, I think, to Trustee Pennington's point, hear the nuance and the dynamic of the dialogue, they could listen to that, or they could look just at the outcome, which would be captured in these minutes.
But you wouldn't be able to click on a link in that item. So you click on the link to go to that discussion of that item, but then there wouldn't be a second link for the vote that you could just
You
click
have to
on.
go back and then click on,
You would just have it here in this
oh, I see.
document.
So it would be all together in this one place. So it would start with an agenda, and then once Phyllis is done with inputting whatever data or whatever text is necessary, it would look however the town's version will look on the right. And then it would be yeses and nos and attachments, and that would be time-stamped and associated with a specific segment of the video.
Okay.
Idea of cost, and I'd like to know your 2 opinions on this.
First is cost. It's about $10,000 for the first year to make the investment in the equipment and then to purchase the license and maintenance agreement. And then that's for two bodies, so that could potentially be Town Board and Planning Commission. And then about $3,800, a little less than $4,000 annually for software maintenance and licensing going forward.
In your guys' opinion?
I see it as a more efficient use of staff time. And it does take staff out of the position of sometimes trying to interpret what the board member's intent was when they were having the discussion about an item, because sometimes it's not, rarely, but sometimes it's not clear. And so we try to, as accurately as we can, reflect the conversation, but sometimes there's 2 or 3 people speaking at once.
Trustee Dozell?
My comment is that I don't think I've ever seen a time that a different action was taken based on the minutes of a meeting. So I think it's kind of a lot of energy spent for nothing to have your staff create these minutes. And we review them, read them all through, and then we approve them. But I can't think of a time when we actually use those minutes to change a decision or make a new decision or take a new action. So I think we should do this without question. Is creating those minutes and never using them for any valuable purpose other than to record, and you've got the video already.
Right.
So we're doing double duty for something that I don't think has any additional value.
Trustee Sorelli?
Nothing.
Okay.
Is it possible to do a test run of this, to, in the near future, actually produce this for one of our meetings to see what it would look like?
We'll have to talk to Granicus and see.
It's not necessary for me. I mean, having sat through that presentation 4 years ago, I just, like I say, I think if I were Phyllis, I would feel tortured every meeting having to come in Tuesday morning and start this process all over, especially after a 7-hour PD-oriented meeting, and being a professional journalist, part of my life, trying to capture intent and that nuance that always happens accurately. So I'm a huge advocate of this. But if other people would like to see, the hard copy next to the automated, or whatever we call this, that might be a good next step. But if nobody...
Trustee Gregorius, you have any?
I'm in favor, yeah.
Okay.
I have no objection.
I'm in favor of it as well, so I think you've got...
The minutes in the past, before we had video, have been valuable because we've been able to go back and determine, board's intent on some items, but now that we have video, it just makes it easier, so.
Okay. I think we've got...
I
Phyllis.
just have one comment.
Yes.
For those that don't have a computer and aren't able to get to the video, I don't know if that's a problem. I just wanted to throw that out there and say,
Do we have a terminal in the lobby that is available for that?
We do, and we can make copies of the meeting as well, but they wouldn't be able to click on the links to go, they just have to
But if
fast
they came
forward.
here, they could.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think as long as we provide something here, I think that's good. Okay. So it sounds like we've got a pretty good consensus to move forward on this.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Should we adjourn the work session?
Yeah, I just listed what we think are the items coming up for the December 8th meeting. If you have any comments, you can.
I do.
We may have the same comment.
Yeah, my comments are, I guess, the decisions that the board made at the last meeting that I left early. And there's two things. One, holding presentations to 10 minutes and 5 slides, and then also moving the board's reports, comments, and questions to the end. That's a big mistake. I mean, that needs to be back up front. And we can talk more about it, or if you want me to elaborate on it now.
Yeah, I'll just say, as far as moving, I know you didn't have the benefit of being here, but the
Right.
6 that were here were in consensus to move that. And then the direction I heard as far as limitation on presentations was no 10 minutes, no more than 15.
Yeah, we've got a presentation coming up for one of the surveys that we intentionally held it off because we think it's going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours long.
Well, I still have 90 minutes scheduled
Okay.
for the discussion.
But for 5 slides for that presentation, I
Well,
don't
the
think it's
5
gonna be
slides I don't know where the 5 slides came from, maybe it came from my staff or whatever, but what I heard from the board was 10 minutes, no longer than 15.
I don't think, okay, so I know we're running late on time, but
Chris, if I can add some clarity on that, it was the thing I brought up. I had no intent of this being applied to a presentation we asked to see. And certainly not the indoor space survey, which we have waited for months to have the presentation of the results on it. So I can understand where staff nothing is black and white. There are grays.
We're not going to
Right.
solve this in 2 or 3 minutes.
So-
Let's push this, continue this discussion,
Right.
but at the
Right.
end, we're
Okay.
going to have to do that. Okay. Anything else on the agenda items? Do we have time to do this, shall I adjourn the work session? Okay, work session's adjourned. Should we call to order the Superior Improvement Foundation meeting now?
Yes,
Okay.
Mayor.
Call to order the meeting of the Superior Improvement Foundation.
So, do you take roll for this, Phyllis? Or, no. So, Mayor, the Superior Improvement Foundation was set up by the town to own land which is located in the Superior Marketplace known as Parcel B or the Roundabout. The property is also referred to as the Director's Parcel. The Superior Improvement Foundation owns the Director's Parcel, which allows trustees to sit on the Board of Directors for the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 and the Superior McCaslin Interchange District. Because of the recent town board elections, we have resignations from former Mayor Andrew Muckle and former trustee Lisa Skumatz, and then the Improvement Foundation board will need to elect Rita Dozell and Clint Folsom to the foundation. And then, so there's 3 items for the foundation. One is to accept the resignations. Second is to elect the new members. And third is to approve the land conveyance contracts for Rita Dozell, Clint Folsom, Chris Hansen, and Sandy Pennington.
And fourth, you have to stand at that roundabout for an hour.
What I would like to know is, can I have the spot
You
that's
have a spot at the
associated with the
roundabout.
Broncos? The horses that are there? That's my spot. That's what partial I want? Okay. All right, that's what I want. I want the Broncos.
You own more real estate.
Do we
So,
need to just do a vote? Is that?
yeah, because the current members will need to make a motion and vote to accept the resignations and the election. And once that's done, then the entire foundation can vote on the land conveyance contracts.
Okay, so a motion from either trustee
either,
Gregoris or Sorelli? Sorelli or Gregoris?
Hanson, Pennington, or Gregoris.
Okay.
I can't find it.
So the first motion would be a motion to accept the resignation of Andrew Muckle and Lisa Skumatz.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Sorelli. All those in favor? We don't vote, yeah. Okay, so that passes unanimous.
Okay. And then the next motion you need to make is to elect Mayor Clint Folsom and trustee Rita Dozell to the Superior Improvement Foundation Board. And you can also combine that with a motion to appoint Mayor Folsom as the president of the Superior Improvement Foundation.
So moved again.
Okay, motion by trustee Gregoris, second by trustee Pennington. All those in favor?
Do they vote for themselves?
Nope, they don't vote.
Nope.
Not yet.
Okay.
You get the next vote.
You're not.
Just so eager to vote.
We're not here yet.
You're in now.
Okay.
Now you're official.
Thank you.
Now I own the Broncos, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're there.
good. The statue. That's all.
And then the final motion would be a motion to approve the land conveyance contracts with Clint Folsom, trustees Dozell, Hanson, and Pennington.
So
Make a
moved.
motion.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson.
You all
Now
you all
you
get to
do.
vote now.
Okay, motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Gregoris. All those in favor? Passes unanimous.
Great, we're done with that.
And I
All right.
have those, I'll pass them down.
Let me sign those.
Meeting's adjourned.
Clint has to sign those.
Okay, should we take a short break or get right started
Let's
with
get
the
into
7
it. We
o'clock?
got a short
Okay.
meeting tonight.
Okay.
He has to sign all of
Okay,
them.
call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees, the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors, and the Superior McCaslin Interchange Metropolitan District Board of Directors. Phyllis, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mayor Clint Folsom,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams, trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Rita Dozell,
Here.
Elia Gregoris.
Here.
Chris Hansen,
Here.
Sandy Pennington,
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley,
Here.
Town Attorney Jeff Parker, Town Clerk Phyllis Harden here.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Have a
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
motion by trustee Gregoris, We have a second to approve the agenda. Second by trustee Sorelli. All those in favor?
A little discussion. So I don't necessarily approve the agenda the way it sits, so I would like to discuss how the agenda is set up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I would actually like to have that discussion earlier rather than later. When's appropriate to have that discussion?
I think we've got room at the end of the meeting to do that, so I would suggest we do that at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. All those in favor of the agenda as set? Okay, it passes with all those opposed. Trustee Henson? Okay. Next, we would have issues and announcements, but we've moved that to the end of the meeting, which we will discuss at the end of the meeting. I am adding a town announcements. Mr. Magley, if you want to read off those.
Yes, Mayor. So 2 upcoming events for the public to be aware of. The first is, it's being called Count the Lights of the Historic Fire Truck. It's being sponsored, put on by the Youth Services Committee and the Historical Commission. It's scheduled for Saturday, December 6th, from 5 to 7 p.m. in Asti Park, which is an original town just off of Coal Creek Drive. And this, both committees have put holiday lights on the historic fire truck that we have in an attempt to raise awareness for the fire truck and hopefully raise some funds for its restoration. So the youth will have a chance to come down and guess the number of lights that have been put on the truck and enjoy drinks and snacks and hopefully raise some donations. So again, that's December 6th, Saturday from 5 to 7.
And can I add something? That
Yeah.
there was such a huge turnout that they got it all done.
Yeah, it looks
And
good.
so they're not going to meet again tomorrow, or they didn't meet today or tomorrow as it was originally scheduled, so the youth are doing great.
Yeah.
Good.
The second one is Skate with Santa, which is being presented by Dixon Orthodontics. It's Saturday, December 13th, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Superior Ice Center next to Old Chicago's and Superior Liquor. It's an annual event that's brought on by the Superior Chamber of Commerce, the town, and Boulder Valley Ice at Superior. Snacks will be provided for the youth to come and skate around and skate with Santa. So again, that's December 13th, Saturday, from 2 to 4 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. If you'd approach the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Gladys Horsey, 404 South 3rd Avenue. I have 4 issues. Let me get to my right page here. The first one is about the format of the agenda. The reports absolutely should not be at the end. November 9th, 2009 minutes, George and I battled and battled and battled, then manager Scott Randall and the town board, to move the reports from the end up to where they have been for the last few years. You people are hired and voted on by us residents to tell us what you're doing with your time. It needs to be up at the beginning of the meeting so that then, in this 5-minute time period, we have an opportunity to comment, ask questions, and that sort of thing. So you need to move those reports back to where they are now, where they have been for years and not at the end. My next question is, I would like to know the date that the new town board extended the contract with the attorney and the town manager.
Okay, we're not going to be able to provide an answer. If you want to go ahead with your questions, we'll get back to you with answers.
So when can I get my answer?
We're not giving answers right now. We're just taking comments, and we'll get back to you with answers.
I get answers before when I have
This
been in
is
the 5
public
minutes, so
comment.
you can tell me when I can get an answer. Matt and other ones have told me before when I can get an answer.
Okay. We're not providing answers right now.
So when can I get an answer?
Not right now.
Tomorrow?
You can continue with your questions.
I will, but I have the right to get an answer. We've had this discussion before, and I'm simply asking a question. And so why can't I get an answer now as to when I can get an answer to my question? There has to be a time period that I can get an answer.
We will get back to you, and it's in a timely fashion.
That is not acceptable, Clint.
Okay. Please continue with your
You, as an
public
elected
comments.
town board, have the right to answer my question and give the residents information when it is requested. And you're not doing that. Why? Why is it such a big issue to ask a question and not get a date? Or when I can get that information?
Please continue.
The town residents need to know that there is a massive corrupt government in this town of Superior. And the sooner that it's revealed, the better that it's going to be. I want to know the public health issue on South 3rd Avenue. When is something going to be done about that? Oh, come on. That's another question that I can't have an answer to, right?
That's correct.
Why?
Because this is public comment. We
It
take
is public
comments, and we will-
comment, but it is
we will
also
provide you.
a time to gather
It's
information.
not an information solving
It
session.
is, because I'm a resident. I have come to the town board wanting information, and you can't give me information. And so by not providing that information, you are just scooping everything underneath the table the way that it has been the last few years.
Gladys, are you referring to the house that
I am
burned?
referring to the house
Matt,
that
do we
has
have an
been
update
burned.
on the house, and is there?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to turn this into a discussion about specific items. I would like to take public comment, and we will get back.
It is a public comment. Public health is a massive issue, Clint.
I understand that, and we will
And so
research every one of these issues, and I will see.
Why can't we get an answer? Why can't we get something done? Because of the fact that it is a health issue.
We've moved.
And also, when are the town residents going to be recognized for the fact, the day of the fire, there were people that was going to be recognized? Those have never been recognized. What happened to that recognition? You've been too busy on your own self-interest and not recognized town residents. And that's a real shame.
Okay. Did you had a fourth item?
I do have a fourth item. My comment is about, not asking for information, Clint. My comment is about the work session information that you had about the online board meeting software. Phyllis is exactly right. Not everybody in this town has a computer. Not everybody lives with their cell phone like you do. So therefore, I am totally against that, and don't tell me that my time's up, because I have a right to talk.
I was just about to say that.
I have a right to talk.
I understand
You're
that.
violating my civil rights by that 5 minutes. How are we residents that get hard copies of these minutes, how are we going to continue to get those hard copies if you get this new program? Not everybody is computer literate. Not everybody is wanting to have that. We have a right to hard copies. Just like now, this hard copy is what has proven the fact that you are very wrong in reorganizing the agenda. We need those hard copies of the minutes.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Next.
Have
Anyone
you heard the
else?
term baptism by fire? Welcome on the board.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
They are on, actually.
Any other public comments? We'll turn the volume up. Mr. Kuffner?
Well, the green light is on. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's on.
George Kuffner, Superior. I haven't had time to look this, but I did hear that you changed the agenda to the, toward the end. This was voted on and recommended by the previous mayor that we have this early for people such as I that don't want to sit up until 11 o'clock to hear what your comments are on the meetings you have attended. This way, if it's before the public comment, if I have something to say, I can say it to you. Okay?
Understand.
Not after the meeting. I'll come back next week, because I just got home, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to presentations. Town Center Developer and Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports Update.
Thank you, Mayor. The board's requested a monthly update regarding the progress of the Superior Town Center development. Scheduled time at the second meeting of each month to have this update. Representatives from the master developer, as well as, I believe, Luke Taylor with Boulder Valley Ice, supposed to be here, to give an update and answer any questions the board might have. Randy? Hello?
Good evening. Welcome, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, Trustee Dozell, and the rest of you trustees. Thank you for continuing to spend your time working with the town, your staff, and my team on Superior Town Center. Relative to the update, we are, candidly, I don't think I can say anything different that would sound different than the last time that I spoke to you. A lot has happened, but nothing, construction hasn't happened. A lot has happened, and we're farther down the road. Luke needs to give a presentation on his financing, and my understanding is there's a few more issues with his financing, questions and answers the lenders have requested. We still fully expect to have the facility open by September 15th next year. I can't give the details on Luke's financing. We Ranch Capital started having direct dialogue with Luke's bank about 2 weeks ago, so that we could get, we're timing our construction so that our construction is starting concurrent with their construction, and we wanted to hear directly from the bank some of those timing responses, largely because the information in process is one of those sort of great words. You don't really know how far along you are in the process. We believe we're very far along. BVI is very far along, and very shortly we expect to have construction. But the timing as far as being open in mid-September is still very much achievable and our expected time frame.
Matt, if BVI does show up later on today, can we have them present even if it might be out of order here? Oh, he is here. Okay, then never mind.
Okay. Are questions, additional questions for?
Can we ask a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There were some activity in the south portion last week of the Superior Town Center land, and there's a lot of new stakes out there. I was just wondering what that is.
That's surveying. Because the southeastern part of Superior Town Center is not platted, we needed to have a meets and bounds legal description of each of the blocks, and so that's what we've had done. So that, of course, if you look at a plat, then the plat would be, for example, block 16 or block 17, and you look at the plat, and that gives you the precise legal description. But for the southeastern portion of the project, it's not platted yet, and so we needed legal descriptions for our parcels and the town parcels.
Okay, so that's what all those stakes are, is according to like where the land is for the school and places like that.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, not the school, because that's platted. That's block 17, I believe. But we wouldn't normally need to keep the stakes out there, but I asked them to put specifically more durable stakes so that they would survive the winter, because we just have a lot of activity going on there, and I don't want to. It just seemed to be more efficient to me for them to do the survey and pound a stake in so that we could locate that exact spot in the future, whether we're talking to a builder or working with different contractors or things like that. So it's not common that you would have the stakes put in at the same time. I mean, it's something I do as a practice, but I think a lot of people just don't spend that extra money to put a stake in.
No, I think it's a good idea to have them there, so like you said, you can find it then.
Right.
I was just curious what they were for and what activity was going to, I thought maybe it was associated with burying the irrigation ditch, or are you going to be doing that soon, or not?
Well, one of the irrigation ditches has already been
Buried, or
well, it's
taken
been
care
put
of.
into a pipe.
Right.
And another one will be put into a pipe with the next stage of construction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Taylor's here, so if you want to transition to him. Mr. Taylor, come on up.
You guys are fast tonight.
New board.
There you go. Luke Taylor, Boulder Valley Ice Indoor Sports. I'm not sure exactly what Randy said on his piece, but from our side of it, we are very close to having the final bank loan stuff done. We finished our raise of capital for the replacement for the SBA, so that part is done. The bank loan documents are supposed to be finalized this week, and we're hoping to be able to close into escrow next week. When I say close into escrow, the piece that we need to happen is, so all of our stuff will be done, but there's the contribution from RC Superior as well as the land transfer, and that's subject to the bond offering that's they're working on right now. So as soon as that piece is done, then our whole piece will close. We're planning on starting some limited construction next Monday, though. So we'll have some of that stuff going, and then depending on how the bonds shake out towards the middle of the month, we may authorize a little bit more aggressive build-out, since time is of the essence for us at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Did I miss a date when we're going to start feeling this, the foundations being laid or whatnot?
So next week, we're going to start doing some limited work, and that's going to be more on the surveying side, erosion control, things like that, to kind of get things lined up, rebar shops and so forth. Then the next piece would be the excavation and the foundations. And that part, is obviously a lot more expensive, but through this raise of this second source of funding, we have enough money to pay for all of that right now. So we could do that subject to, how Ranch is moving along with their bond offering. It's because we can't close our bank loan completely until, the land is transferred and so forth. Does that make sense? Not really?
No.
Okay.
I'm confused because, so I guess maybe Randy needs to come back up, because I had understood that they were waiting for this to break ground and be at some stage in order to float the bond. But I'm hearing now that you need them to float the bond before you do something. So I need clarity on which chicken and egg.
Chicken and the egg? Well, Randy, do you want to?
So what Luke's talking about is we're bringing together his financing with our financing at the same point in time. And the chicken and the egg issue is that our financing can't proceed until his loan is approved. And we have been waiting for loan docs to put into our documents so that we can post the bond offering. The bond offering is 99% complete. And this week, any day, he'll have final approval of his loan, and the loan docs will follow shortly thereafter. Our bond process is about 2 weeks after that. And so there'll be an interim period where he's closed into escrow, and the only thing that he's waiting for is money from us. And then with that, then we'll go ahead and close the bond and make the we have to contribute the gift into escrow of the $1.5 million. The initial, of the 1.7 million, $1.5 million is cash simultaneous with the close of escrow and the closing and funding of his construction loan.
So this got more complicated when you threw in the extra $1.5 million. Did this link this agreement tighter?
Yes.
When you threw more money in?
Yes, because as I mentioned when we first announced the $1.5 million, I mean, there's a lot of things that have always been linked, but timing hasn't been as, because of the time it's taken to get to where we are, the execution in weeks matter. So I'd say we've always had a necessary codependency on construction timing and things like that. Our condition for the $1.5 million is it's the last thing that goes in. And so Luke has to have everything fully lined up, and then we need the loan documents from the bank, and then we'll complete our process and put the $1.5 million into escrow.
Okay, now timeline forward. So he gets his loan docs approved, you float your bond.
That's right.
When is dirt dug and cement laid, and when can we expect that?
Well, so you heard Luke's process. From our perspective, in the range of the outside 3 weeks, we will be putting in the construction road and this construction staging areas and sort of ramping up for Luke's. The first couple of weeks of Luke's effort are preparing the site and trenching, and not a huge amount of equipment, some of the staking that he mentioned. As he's doing that, we're going to be putting in the construction road and the construction staging area. And his construction team and our construction team are coordinating so that they have what they need from us, and we're meeting their needs from a construction standpoint.
So you said 2 to 3 weeks after, right?
I think that the time frame that we're looking at is 2 to 3 weeks from now. We'll be doing our construction. Luke will be starting the early work on his, as he described, so I won't repeat that. And I expect that our bond will close mid-December.
So breaking ground, probably until after the first of the year, like the real.
Well, I think the real vigorous construction will be in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just want to manage expectations.
Yeah.
Trustee Cirilli?
I'm not asking for a crystal ball, but if we have a normal winter around here, what kind of delays can you absorb from winter weather?
I mean, can you get it done in 9 months by September, I think is what Joe is asking.
Well, that is going to be the goal. I think worst case scenario, we'll at least be able to have one of the sheets open by September and allow us to use the existing facility until the rest of it comes online. With regards to the turf, most of our contracts with the turf don't start till the end of October, so we do have a couple extra months leeway there. So the real critical piece is getting at least one sheet of ice up and operational by September 1st. And we can do that. Vigorous construction, I think we need to be doing vigorous construction here in December. So that's my target with it. And the stuff we're starting on the 1st is probably about 10 days worth of things that need to be in place before we can start doing the excavation in the foundations. So I believe we're going to have some pretty vigorous construction, middle of December onwards. I don't think we can afford to wait till January and still hit that September timeline. So.
Okay. Trustee Dozell?
This is a really question for Randy. So I understand your construction plans, Luke, but when you say you're going to start and understand when you said you're starting the construction road and the staging area down over here, but when will you be starting the construction on Main Street? Is that the bond you're talking about? Is the bond the first tranche of bonding?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And when do you think you'll start Main Street?
Well,
FTP 1
You asked
and
about like,
1A.
when we'd start paving Main Street?
No, when we, well, you have to
So we're
construct it
going to start
first.
all of Phase 1 at the same time, and we're going
Okay.
to do part of Phase 2.
Mhm.
We're going to start all of that at the same time.
Okay.
And
Because your construction is separate and
yeah, I have a detailed construction schedule. I don't have it memorized, and
No, I'm not
just sort
looking
of
for that.
generally big picture.
Yeah.
The way we break it out is our first contract is a grading contract, and the grading contract will be for half of the project. And so that'll be all of Phase 1 and 2 will be in the grading contract, and then a portion of Phase 3. And
If we're talking about FTPs, we're talking about FTP 1, 1A, and 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, the way they are is, so it's FTP 1 Phase 1 and FTP 1 Phase 2.
Right.
And then we are, part of all of this, I'm just going to take an aside for a moment and provide more information. Part of all of this has been a question about what the timing of the parks would be, particularly the large park between Coal Creek and the town center. That park has been driven by a federal permitting schedule with Fish and Wildlife and Army Corps and FEMA. That process is not delayed, and the delivery date for that park is ahead of schedule. So that park will now mostly be delivered with this first phase of construction, because last week, received our permit from Fish and Wildlife, and we've submitted for an application to adjust the floodplain boundaries to allow for the fill, and we expect that to be received by March, and that's about a year ahead of schedule. And so that, with the first phase of development work, we've actually modified our plans, because the work that's done, the permitting that's been done is what had the biggest potential to be delayed. And so where we are in the permitting has allowed us to modify our grading plan that's going to be bid out. Well, we're actually in the process of negotiating with the contractor. The bid formally occurred last year. And so we're going to be doing the work to develop that park as part of Phase 1 and Phase 2. And by the way, so to have the park plans approved for Park, I believe that's Park 2, that'd be helpful. So that park is proceeding. As it relates to the way I look at the whole project, the first half of the work is the grading, and then when the grading's done, then we have a separate contract with a separate general contractor. The grading is directly to a grading contractor, and then we'll have a general contractor who will coordinate subcontracts for wet utilities and dry utilities and the streets, sidewalks, the street lights, and all that kind of stuff. And so that is that's where the schedule is more driven by what Luke needs as far as when we get utilities over to Block 12, and the access that we're going to have. So our primary access is Main Street, and so all the utilities are going into Main Street, and you'll see that work, pretty early next year.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you very much, both
Thank
of
you.
you, for the update. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is item B under number 5, presentation by the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee regarding a dog waste compost program.
Thank you, Mayor. Rachel Bray from RCAC is here. This is something the committee's been working on for the past year. Money for this program is included in the 2014 budget, as well as money if the board decides to implement it in 2015 and beyond. And with that,
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm Rachel Bray, member of RCAC. I'll try and keep this short. You have a lot of information already on your memo that you have in your package. Just wanted to bring up that RCAC started talking about the idea of composting dog waste at the town's dog park when the park was first constructed a few years ago.
due to an existing available dog waste service in the area, improvements that have been made to it recently, and a decrease in costs. We have decided that a recommendation through the budget process last year with the town for providing this service. Several local communities are using this service and actually have been expanding it because it's been so popular with the community. Thereby, that has been bringing down the costs also. The service that we're talking about is with a company called EnviroWag. It's in the Denver metro area, and it is a unique business partnership that upcycles dog waste into something very useful, a rich, safe compost mix with no odor that is marketed locally as doggone good compost from EnviroWag. It comes in bags. This is a little sample I've had in my house for the last 2 years since I received it 2 years ago. So if anybody wants to look at it, you're more than welcome. I'll pass it around. It's just soil. I didn't swap it.
Pass it to the audience.
We politely decline.
We'll have to get past that.
Anyways, the committee has worked with staff this year to figure out how to start providing this service and at the Autry Dog Park. The first year costs are expected to be around $2,500, and this program budget is also included in the 2015 budget as well. The plan includes an outreach to the dog park users and via a newsletter to help publicize this program. RCAC formally recommended to the town board we start this program during our October 9th meeting. We hope the board will provide direction to start this program as soon as staff is available to coordinate the details. This program will provide a low-cost service to the residents of Superior, and it will also contribute to the town's environmental sustainability goals. I hope that in the future we'll be able to expand it like it has in other communities, and we can go forward from there. It is a low-cost, pretty low-cost service. The prices have come down, and we think it's an easily captured waste that it can easily be done. So, any questions? Yeah.
Trustee Hanson.
So they're just going to pick up dog waste at Autry Park, nowhere else in the town?
Right now, that's the plan.
Okay.
To just
$2,500 is really, it's negligible. It's not much. But what does it currently cost us to remove dog waste from that park?
I don't have that.
I mean, it's probably minimal, but my question was,
sorry,
we're going to pay $2,500 for somebody to come pick it up, and we're already paying someone to do it now. Then they're going to take it, and they're going to sell it to someone else and make money on it. How does the town benefit at all in that chain?
It's a service to provide so that this doesn't go into waste. I don't know all the details, but I know that there are diseases that are carried by dog waste. And this is not something that you do in your own backyard. It goes to an industrial composter who then processes it up to temperatures and certain requirements. And that's why it's soil and it doesn't smell like dog poop.
So it's basically going to the landfill now.
It goes to landfill now, exactly.
So
this is to
diverting it
remove-
from the landfill to
right, waste
to this.
diversion.
Okay.
So what kind of statistics are we going to get at the end of a year to see whether or not we want to continue this?
I assume, and Martin may be able to help me, I'm assuming that we'll get some sort of statistics about poundage or amount that's been picked up. We're doing, I think, twice a week pickups, is that right? And it's a barrel they're providing, toters or whatever. So.
Yeah,
As long as there's some kind of metrics you're saying
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you know, if we're
that's a
paying
good thing we can-
$2,500 and there's very low participation and it doesn't net anything meaningful, perhaps next year we don't decide to continue. However, if we collect thousands of tons and whatever, I don't know, there's some big dogs
I don't know,
out there.
I know that the statistics I've been given is that a dog produces an average of 3/4 of a pound of waste daily, or 275 pounds a year.
So the idea, though, is that this becomes the collection point. I mean, it's not like you've got a compost and then a trash bin out there. This is going to be the disposal for dog waste, period, right?
This is for disposal at the park, yeah.
So
I mean, you can't put...
you'll either divert it all or they'll throw it on the ground, I guess.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it goes...
I'm fine trying this for a year, but I'm just concerned about what we will learn during that year that would help us make the decision whether or not to continue it going forward. And so I think now's the time to ask for that data to be collected so that at the end of the year, we don't say, well, we should have asked for that. What do we want to know from these people to know whether or not it's meaningful?
I would assume that we'd be able to ask the staff to, when they set it up, to have some sort of metric in there for that.
There will be a boatload of evidence.
Yeah.
Trustee Dozell.
So what happens today? Does Vargas take it away in a trash, out of a trash bin?
No, we have a service that comes and collects, and I believe it just goes to the landfill now. So.
Okay, so somebody else separately
We
collects that
contract
dog
separately,
waste
yeah.
from
Do we
Auction
pay them for
Park?
that?
We do.
How much do we pay?
I don't
Okay.
have that. I will follow up with you on how much the cost is.
Because you know how much the cost is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other question I have then, after having done the poop tour, which is last week we had a wonderful opportunity to go through the wastewater and water treatment plants, and it seems like we do that for human waste and end up with this big truckload of stuff that's basically dirt at the end, and Clint's got pictures of all this, so if anybody's interested in this. But, and so I have no idea, I'm just throwing this out, thinking out loud. Could we do that through our own wastewater treatment plant instead of picking it up separately, or would it end up costing us more than the $2,500? I don't need an answer to that, but think about that when you're doing the analysis.
You mean if you flush dog waste?
No, put it into our treatment. The wastewater treatment plant is right there beside the dog park.
Oh, I see,
Just shoot it right over there.
Just haul it right over there. I don't know. Put it in the little active, bubbling, aerating bug place, I don't know. But anyway, just Alex, thank you, look into it, yeah. Because we seem like we do all that, and we end up with dirt like that at the end of the process, so.
Is there any opportunity to build in the agreement with them that maybe we get some of that compost back that we can put on in the dog park on our grass?
Yeah, I would assume it would cost more for that, so. But
I guess I can't get around the fact that we got to pay them to take it away, then they sell it, and then somebody else sells it. And I just...
I got a great big, how many ton truck is it, sitting right there beside it, full of this stuff.
I can't imagine there's a lot of money to be made.
So if we need it, we can just pull it right out.
I think we're helping to build an industry here. Yeah, I think this.
What's wrong with that?
We're leaders.
Are we good to?
Yeah.
Are we good to move forward for a year?
I'm willing to do it for a year.
Okay, shall we take a vote?
Do we need to vote on this or no? Or is it head nod?
If you're comfortable that it's clear, that it's good for a year to...
Well, we don't know if it's clear and good.
Well, we'll know in a year.
So you want to proceed with...
We're fine with spending the $2,500 to see how this thing works.
Why wouldn't we vote? What's the short...
I thought I heard that we needed to know when staff was
Well, we're spending money.
ready to implement.
Just take a vote by roll, and then you'll be clear.
Okay.
It's clean? Clean on poop?
Really?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Gregorius?
There's so many things I want to say, but yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Okay, we've cleared that up, thanks. Okay, item number 6 is the consent agenda.
There's one thing I'm sorry I didn't mention earlier. I'd like to pull G and discuss it if we can.
Okay, can we do that?
Just stop here.
Is that all right? Yeah, that's fine, as long as you all agree with that.
That's fine. I can support that.
Sure.
I would actually like to pull F. Can we all support that? That sort of flipped by the consent agenda. I didn't realize all this was on it.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Pulling F and G. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion to?
I have a process question, I guess, since most of these things had done prior to coming on board. Do we abstain, or does it make a difference?
No, you're officially approving them, so
Okay.
you don't need to abstain.
Okay, thank you.
The one,
I mean, the minutes.
the
The
minutes of
minutes.
October 27th.
No,
Well,
that's right.
there's,
Yeah.
there's.
That's the only thing.
So what I'd say is that if you weren't on the board when the minutes were actually, for the meeting of the minutes, your vote for the rest of the consent agenda won't count for that portion of the consent agenda.
Okay, well, that was my
Yeah,
exact
no, that's a
question,
great
because there's
question.
multiple things in there that I wasn't a
Yeah.
part of, but there's others that, so if you're voting on the consent agenda as a whole,
Right.
it's not
No, I
appropriate.
forgot about the minute part,
I was
actually.
going to abstain from the whole consent agenda because
No,
it
you-
doesn't fit.
You can simply say that you're abstaining from the October 27th minutes, and
Okay.
you'll be fine to vote on the
It's
rest.
just like if you're absent, let's say Deborah, so in our next meeting, she will abstain from the minutes of today's board meeting, because she's not here, that's all.
Right,
I know,
or-
but it's in consent agenda.
Right, so in order to not have any confusion and to be able to still vote on the entire consent agenda, as long as you're in agreement, your vote won't count for that portion of the consent
Okay,
agenda.
thank you.
Okay. Trustee Cirilli?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as revised.
Motion by Trustee Cirilli.
Second.
Second by Trustee Hansen. All those in favor?
Well, I think we have to do we're spending some money on some of
Yeah,
these items.
we have to do roll call.
Okay.
first.
Roll call.
So I want to put in there abstain, Mayor Folsom and Trustee Dozell, right?
For anything prior to.
For the minutes.
Yeah,
For the
right.
For just the minutes.
Okay.
27th, yeah.
Okay. Pennington,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Folsom,
Yes.
Dozell,
Yes.
Cirilli?
Yes.
Okay. Shall we move on to F and G now?
Yep.
Okay, let's do F. Item F is adoption of an ordinance amending Section 6-2-60A of the Superior Municipal Code concerning fines in lieu of suspension of a liquor license. Trustee Pennington?
So I wanted to ask the attorney, is this a decision we would have to make for each case in front of us, whether or not we can do a fine rather than the suspension, or is this like automatic?
This expands the cases to which you can actually make that decision. It doesn't make it automatic every time.
Okay.
It basically just gives you authority to offer a fine in lieu in additional circumstances that you weren't allowed to before.
Okay. Well, I actually, and I think there are a lot of us on the board that take this, the infractions of a liquor license pretty seriously. I come at it from the perspective of the kids that get drawn into the system when underage sales are made, et cetera. So as long as we as a board have more options to deal with it, including the suspension,
Right.
I'm okay with it.
That's what we're voting for.
But if it's an imposition of fines instead of the suspension, then I have a real policy problem with that. Because I actually think fines are easier
That's why
on a
that-
business, and I want to have the more harsh penalty in most
The
cases.
fines are easier, and that's typically why they take that as an
Right,
option.
Right.
So-
But we have full latitude to do, at every case. Matt?
Well, I just want to clarify that the board considers new liquor licenses and renewals, and then the way it's set up for the town, the municipal judge issues fines and suspensions for liquor license violations.
So we don't do that.
So this would come to the municipal
Good point. I didn't
judge
realize that.
rather than to the town board, this particular instance.
So.
Just for clarification.
And that
But-
filters back to us only in terms of the report when they
For
apply for a
renewals.
renewal.
Yep.
That's how it's always been, though.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, but this gives the judge more latitude
Yeah,
in
that's-
terms of
I
accepting,
apologize for that, 'cause different communities do it differently.
accepting a fine rather than doing the suspension.
That's right, actually.
We can have a discussion with the judge and say, we want you to lean more
Yeah.
towards, I don't know if we can do that.
The changes are that previously, you couldn't consider fines in lieu if there had been a suspension or violation within the previous 2 years. And it was, other was the, I'm sure I got this right, right, and if the suspension was less than 14 days. So now you can actually do it in basically any circumstance. But I apologize, a lot of our clients actually have the licensing authority doing the suspensions, and you do have the judge, so I apologize for that.
So this allows the judge to be more lenient.
It allows him to offer the fine in lieu.
He has more flexibility.
Right, right.
For lenience.
Yeah.
But he could also be, but it's up to his discretion. He could also suspend.
That's right. The fine in lieu is something that businesses like to take because it actually allows them to still operate their business.
Right.
So, I think it is accurate to say it's definitely it's a benefit for the business.
And with the fines, where does that money go?
It goes into the general fund.
To our general
To
fund?
the town?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
And we're doing this because of a change in state law. It's
Right.
not just because we're
No.
deciding to
Right.
change it.
State law now gives you the option
Okay.
to offer this
Okay.
expanded, I guess, flexibility.
But it doesn't require us
That's
to.
right.
What if a judge has a tendency to be more lenient and the board doesn't appreciate that? Can we meet with the judge and say, you know, our town, we would like you to be a little more stern?
I think generally the way you do that is through enacting laws that place more restrictions rather than telling the judge how you want to enforce the law. That's generally what you do. But when you hire a judge, as part of the interview process, his philosophy, your philosophy, but typically it's done by enacting laws to give him the parameters to work within.
Mm-hmm.
So we can draft laws to basically provide presumptions and do certain things if you want to enforce differently.
Yeah.
But
And
generally,
our judges year to year? Or every 4 years?
2 years, I
it's
believe. he's
every 2
appointed.
years under state law, the appointment, and you can only remove a judge for good cause, which is basically serious misconduct.
But at 2 years, you renew his
That's right.
contract?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Matt, do you meet with him on a regular basis and
Every
do
month, yeah,
reviews and all
yeah.
that kind of thing? And
Yeah.
so we could let him know that's the way this board feels, is that
I would suggest if if the board's not comfortable with the judge having this flexibility, that I would just either vote this down or table it to a future date, but because even if I had the conversation with him, he in each case, depending on what the facts and circumstances are, he may choose, if it's available to him, he may choose to exercise that option.
Yep.
I think Joe.
was first.
Trustee Thrill.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about the memo that we got with this, which indicates that because the state revised its statute, we had to revise our code to be in line with the state statute.
That's the information I got, that I received.
So, and if for no other reason than confusion on this point, perhaps we should table this till we know for sure whether, and the second question was in reading the ordinance, and maybe I was misreading it, but I thought this fine in lieu of had to be requested after a suspension was announced or decided, and and here's where I wasn't sure whether that could be appealed first or that a request for a fine in lieu of was requested at that. So all the mechanics of this were not clear to me. And
A fine in lieu is requested by the, well, once there's a suspension issued, they can request a fine in lieu.
so the judge doesn't initially come forth and say, I'm going to fine you instead of suspending you.
No, they have to request it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then they request a fine in lieu of, or they can appeal the decision
That's
to
right.
suspend.
It would be an administrative appeal because it's an administrative matter, so.
Okay, and who does the appeal go to?
District court.
Okay. So it's cheaper to ask for a fine than to go to district
It
court?
certainly is.
Yeah. And it's easier to pay a fine than to be suspended.
Yeah, it depends. In most of these cases, suspension usually is like an admission almost by somebody, they're part of the sting, and there's really nothing much to appeal. They did it. So the fine in lieu basically, appealing it doesn't do them much good in most cases. But, in a case where there was a serious mistake, they have the option of doing that.
Okay, so was there any issue about this question of whether we have leeway here or not? as a statutory town?
Yeah, my understanding is that this gives you the option. It doesn't require you to impose it. So, but I can look at this, again, I can look at the state law again, but that's the way I've told all my clients that it works, so.
It says here in the cover memo, the town's code must be updated to be consistent with this amended statute. But it doesn't go on to say that if we want to be inconsistent, we can choose to be inconsistent.
Well, I think by being consistent, this is written by Ms. Carberry, so I apologize, I didn't write the memo, but to be consistent, it means to basically, I'll give you the same, to take the full authority allowed by the statute, but taking less isn't actually being inconsistent with the state statute, it's just not giving the full authority. It's allowed.
So the confusion is mine, I guess, because it was my understanding when I wrote the cover memo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was that because the state passed it, that we were required as a statutory town to pass it. So if that's not the case, we can bring this back, so.
I support tabling it.
I say
until
table it
we-
too, yeah. until we-
Let's see, yeah,
Because I'll go back and talk to Kendra.
that would be my recommendation.
Okay, let's,
I have a different question, actually, very short. Do we have any idea how many fines every year we get? The town?
Not off the top of my head, but.
For suspensions.
Like more
separate
than-
from court costs, but fines and from, yeah, I can, from
Just
liquor
more or less,
suspensions, yeah,
for
yeah.
liquor, yeah? If
You
there
mean
are
for
any.
everything, or
No,
for-
just for liquor specifically.
Well, there's no fines for liquor, it's a suspension right now,
It's a
so.
So that we haven't received any money
Right.
from.
Yeah. And the number of liquor licenses we have in town would be minimal, because the number of violations we have is slimmed enough.
But to be clear, it's suspensions now. There is not the option for fines. Right?
Correct.
But there could be in the.
I thought it was for 14.
Yeah, you have the option for suspensions of less than 14 days, and if it hasn't been an offense in the last 2 years.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
All right,
fine.
thank you, I don't have it.
okay.
So let's.
Okay, so we're tabling this.
Table.
Okay. Item G is adoption of a resolution approving an agreement without limits production for the Superior Mortgage Promoter. Yep. Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, I actually have no issues at all with the relationship that we've established with this group. I think this is one of the best decisions we made, having them manage this. But I do have questions just about the past events and maybe gaining some insight on what we're going to do moving forward. I really have 3 questions and/or comments. And the first one was the road race. To me, that's the biggest. I mean, that's the Morgul Classic, right? I mean, or is the criterium, the time trial, considered part of the Morgul Classic? I always thought the road race was the Morgul, and that was the big race.
Yes, Tony, without limits. The Morgul, the Morgul Bismarck course is the famed course back from the Course Classic days and the Red Zinger. Past, 5 years, it's been like the Morgul Classic, Superior Morgul Classic, which has encompassed the road race. That is the keystone event, is the Sunday road race event.
Okay.
Yes.
So the road race participation has gone down each year since 2011. The criterium has actually increased. The time trial has stayed the same. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, did you guys think about that? You talk about that with your group and see the participation rates going down, and are we going to try and improve that to get more participation in this?
Sure, absolutely. I believe, the criterium has gone up. I believe the time trial went up last year from the year previously a little bit, so it's nice to see those numbers, either remain constant or, bump up a little bit. I believe the decrease in the road race was, the initial 2 years when the town brought back the Morgul. It was, it hadn't been done in so long just because the race had, with the Course Classic had gone away. So it was new. It was the original Morgul Bismarck course. The past 2 years, we've had to adjust that due to, 2 years ago, due to highway technologies going out of business. So that was kind of a fire drill just to save the race that day. And last year, the construction along 93 prevented us from doing the Morgul Bismarck course. So I think taking away the actual, historic course, some people just didn't come out and race because it didn't have that historic value to them. Okay. And that was the feedback, we gotten from the cyclists themselves. Some people loved the new course, the absolute closed course, but, there were a majority, a good number of people that wouldn't come out and race because it wasn't the Morgul Classic or the Morgul Bismarck course.
Okay. Yeah. So that leads to my second question, and that is the course itself. So 2 years, is it 2 years ago that we changed it to what the course, what you're proposing for this next race? For next
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
just with the construction of 93,
It's not going to be finished by then.
exactly, yeah. So we don't want to propose bringing back the original Morgul-Bismarck Loop course, if we're not certain that 93 is going to be finished.
Yeah. So essentially, they really just go along Colton from Rock Creek Circle up to 128, then down to 93 and back, and that's it. They don't go through original town anymore or anything like that.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
But the goal is, once 93 is finished, then is to do the original course again.
Yeah, that's our long-term thought as well, is to bring it back and do the original course. One, it'll be safer along 93 with the widening and the bike shoulder, lane and everything like that. And to, hopefully boost the numbers back up for that Sunday's event.
Okay. And then I brought this up before, and maybe it's just a really bad idea, but we used to do the Superior Days in town, and that always was kind of fun.
Sure.
Is there any chance, have we had further discussions, or is there a possibility of combining the two and bringing Superior Days back, where we have the baseball game, the vintage baseball game, and booths, and scouts come out, and everybody comes out around this race?
Yeah, I'll let Patrick answer that, because we've been talking with him about combining, more town events with the weekend, so.
Patrick Hammer, town staff. As part of staff's 2015 work plan, we are working right now to incorporate more community events to work in conjunction with the Morgul weekend. A couple of the ideas that we're exploring right now is possibly doing a movie in the park showing American flyers, which was an idea that goes all the way back to 2010. The American Flyers movie is an older movie that shows the Morgul-Bismarck course, and it's got some great shots of town before everything was kind of built up. We're also working on developing a plan to do a kid family-focused bike event that would focus on bike safety and work on maybe doing a bike course that could happen alongside, whether it's the trail networks down in Community Park or potentially doing something up near the roundabout at Colton. So we can have a community activity going on while the bike race is going on. And we're also looking at doing maybe a food truck expo and working with local beer vendors, and then doing more of a grandstand on the Sunday of the Morgul, focusing on when I would say the pro riders are actually out on the course. I think something we've learned as staff is when we try to promote an activity that goes the full day of the race from 8 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's almost an impossible feat. It's a really, really long event. So focusing the event while the premium riders are out on the course, doing some education about what the race format is, and maybe doing kid activities, food trucks, beer vendors, almost taking a little bit of what you see at 4th of July, a little bit of Chili Fest, and really focusing it during.
Yeah, I think
the
events
Morgul
like
race.
that, the Chili, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Chili Fest was so successful this year that if we could do something similar to that and tie it in with the Morgul, but make the event all about the Morgul, but have something really exciting that appeals to a wider variety of our residents.
One of the benefits of how this relationship is developed is it really does take the pressure off of staff from running the actual race component. A lot of what was really stressful in those first couple of years is, as a Parks and Rec department, we were trying to be the registration, the keeper of the race. What we do really well is events. What they do really well is the bike race. And maybe looking at kind of bringing those two back together. And I think the May weekend, it's not on a weekend when the high school's in graduation, which helps. I think we've got the timing figured out. So it's definitely on staff's work plan.
Yep, and I definitely like the cost, the expense of it, because at one point we were spending $120,000 or more.
Yeah.
Last couple years it was in at 30. Now we're down to 20,000. So we're going in the right direction for sure.
And part of that reduction is in the budget. We did slide that money over back to our community events line, so we could do an event in partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Pennington?
So was the intent, I love the idea of showing American flyers every year with the Morgul. It seems to me, getting into some traditions, et cetera, that'll be aired every year. We've got enough people moving in and out that I think it's always going to be relevant. Is the intent in May then to show that outside like we do the movies in the park?
We have talked about doing it outside, yes.
Okay. And I can actually see the food trucks being there that evening.
Mhm.
So we don't provide free pizza and whatnot like Rock Creek HOA does, et cetera, but people,
Mhm.
and I'd love to have, do we know of any Superior-owned food trucks? You know, so we make sure and you know, promote the personal economies of some of our Superior families. So I actually love making that a tradition, and certainly all the, forget just kid-focused bike safety. How about adult-focused bike education so I can learn to change a flat? I'd participate in that one.
It's an easy ad.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have a comment that this year, last year, May, the last one, I didn't even know what was going on. I mean, I knew it was going on because I was actively engaged in town board events and planning, but most of my neighbors and people I talked to had no idea. I mean, we went to Sunday morning to Safeway to try and get there, and you couldn't get through and around the intersection and Rock Creek Parkway and Colton. It just has to be a better job of communicating to the non-bikers. I mean, I'd like to go watch it. I used to go watch it, the classics and the boulder races and things like that, but I'm not a big biker. But I like to go watch it, but nobody I knew in my neighborhood knew anything about it, and actually were frustrated because you couldn't get into Safeway that morning.
Mhm.
It was all closed off. So, you know, like the Chili Fest and things, I think that's absolutely, we need to make it a town event, not just a biker event, a cyclist event, and then that would be good. And I never thought about it, you can't do it all day, but pick the time. Is it better in the morning? You know, early, because when the elites are biking, or later in the day, I would think it'd be in the morning, but, or whenever, I don't know. I'm not trying to plan the event. I'm just saying that I didn't find anybody last year in town that knew about it to even attend when the bikers were coming through, the racers were coming through.
Staff is going to work closely with these guys on taking back over that kind of communication piece. It's high on our priority. Is one of the first things we talked about in the debrief, and it's something that I think as we have that event budget, we can expand our marketing a little bit.
Yeah, instead of having it be that they're taking over our town, let us welcome them into our town, and then we participate in it. Because last year it seemed like, you know, Morgul was taking over the town, but we weren't engaged in it.
Okay. Yeah, we need to.
Yeah.
I'll make- Trustee Hanson?
Yep, I make a motion, Town of Superior Resolution Number R-67, Series 2014, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement between the town and Without Limits Productions to host the 2015 Superior Morgul Cycle Race.
Okay, motion by Trustee Hanson, second by Trustee Gregoris. All those in favor?
We need to
Roll call.
yeah.
I'll get that
Hanson?
eventually.
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Rozell?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Next on the agenda is item number 7, adoption of an ordinance approving the annexation of town-owned property, parcel number 34, REVX, and a resolution approving a quitclaim deed transferring ownership of the property to RC Superior LLC. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
presentation.
This property is located near the historic cemetery, adjacent to US 36. It's a triangle piece of property that was Colorado Department of Transportation right-of-way back in 2013. And for those, the best way to describe it, I guess, is there used to be an underpass near the cemetery that would go over to Avista Hospital. And that, on our side, on the west side, was this piece of property that CDOT had right-of-way property. With the improvements to US 36 and the new pedestrian bridge near the hospital that was installed, that underpass was no longer needed, and so they filled it in. And so CDOT no longer needed the right-of-way. But they did need right-of-way from the town to help complete improvements to US 36 McCaslin interchange. So last year, we reached an agreement with CDOT to exchange the right-of-way they needed and the right-of-way they owned, so that they could complete the improvements to US 36 McCaslin, and we could get a piece of property that would contribute to the town center development project and expand the acreage of the proposed park next to the cemetery that's planned within the town center development. The board approved that exchange of right-of-way, and we did not annex the piece of property, and so that's the action that we're taking tonight. We'll annex it into town and then do a quick claim deed to deed that piece of property over to RC Superior, the master developer for the town center, which they will use as part of the proposed park for the area. So my staff, Lisa Ritchie, is here, as well as Fred Fox, our consulting town planner, and Randy Goodson is still here. Questions the board might have. The Planning Commission, I'll mention, did review this on October 7th, 2014, and recommended the property be annexed to the town.
Okay, questions? Trustee Dozell?
So if I'm looking at the map here,
Yeah.
one corner of this triangle will probably be in one of the blocks that's identified, but the preponderance, or the largest, the majority of it would ultimately be probably, most likely, someday deeded back to the town as part of that park area there.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Some
But
part
that
of it-
one corner there,
Once
the,
yeah.
will be in that, I can't remember what block it is, but one of the blocks of the Superior Town Center.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
I don't have any questions, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Trustee Pennington?
What is the acreage?
1.10.
1.7 acres, I'm told.
And can you break it down, as Rita described it, which part goes to the park and which goes to the residential?
Randy or Lisa, one of the two.
It's, yes, it's 1.7, I think, it might be 1.72 acres, and .233 acres. It will be in Block 24, and all the rest is in the park, the Central Park, or Park 3, as it's been referred to.
You said .233?
.233,
So about a fourth of an acre?
just under a fourth of an acre.
It's a corner that, if you're looking at this triangle that's in yellow,
I
it's
get it.
the bottom
Below the
right-hand
gray.
side, yeah, right.
Got it. Okay.
It's already been approved in the original developer agreement in March of 2013, so it's really a formality of what we're going through here. So I guess if we're ready to make a motion, if we have to do that.
Yeah. Sure. Would you like to go? would you like
I'll
to
make a motion that we, do I have to read the resolution? Or is there?
Just the-
The ordinance, okay.
Actually, I have it here if you want to. Yeah, it's going to be 11.
Page 169.
Okay. This is an ordinance number 0-11, Series 2014, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior annexing to the town a parcel of unincorporated property located in Boulder County, commonly referred to as parcel number 34, REV X and more, particularly described herein.
Have a motion by Trustee Dozell,
I second the motion.
second by Trustee Sorelli. Vote on this one? Okay. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay. That takes us to item number 8.
No, we have another, I'm
There's
sorry,
one
we have
more,
another
yeah.
resolution.
Sorry.
The associated.
It's the quick claim.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is a quick
Sorry, it's
claim
too quick.
deed. Resolution number R-72, Series 2014, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving the conveyance of certain property known as parcel number 34 REV X and more, particularly described herein, to RC Superior LLC by quit claim deed.
Motion by Trustee Dozell and second by Trustee Sorelli. All those in favor? Trustee?
Yes.
Okay. Passes unanimous. Thank you. Okay, that's it for that item. Okay. Next is item number 8, reports, questions, and issues.
Well, I think we need to discuss the reports.
Yes.
Questions and issues, that's one of the issues. So,
I'll start by saying I am responsible for bringing this idea up, and it was brought up as a change I wanted to make to the structure of the meetings to help it potentially flow a little bit quicker. And I reviewed a number of other municipalities, where they had reports, questions, and issues in their agendas, and it was about half and half. Some of them were in the beginning, some were at the end. And what I saw as a member of the audience was frequently the reports, questions, and issues would be, there'd be 15 minutes of it allocated, and it would routinely turn into 30, 45, and it would often be a discussion amongst board members, discussion with manager and attorney. So I think there's ways for us to communicate what we're doing as mayor and trustees to the public in almost a better way than a summary at the beginning or end of wherever we decide to put it of the meeting, where we perhaps incorporate it into this new meeting minutes, a blog that each of us is doing, and it might link to, let's say someone went to a Dr. Cog meeting and there's a lot of acronyms associated with that. Maybe people want to know more about that, and they can click through and actually learn a little bit more about what people are saying in these reports, questions, and issues. So again, my main issue was wanting to move it to where we could get to public comment sooner and we could get to agenda items sooner, and primarily agenda items sooner, because quite frequently we'd have an audience full of people waiting here an hour, sometimes 2 hours, and I don't think that's best use of people's time.
So I think there's value to continue having the reports, questions, and issues. It's our opportunity as a board to address the audience sometimes. It doesn't have to be, I agree with you that sometimes we get off tangent and the debate starts and then we're 45 minutes into it, and I don't think that was the purpose of it. There's sometimes that I have questions for Matt or the attorney, or maybe it's important to bring our own individual issues, but I agree that we need to be more mindful of the time and that there are people in the audience waiting. And we can talk about whether when we keep it in the beginning or the end, but I don't want to remove this altogether.
No, and I'm not, and that was never the issue. That was never the intent. Trustee Pennington.
I actually was in the audience when they were at the end, and saw when they were moved to the beginning. I think we adopted what we did last meeting in the interest of helping the audience be able to participate in public comment. They knew if they came at 7, there would be public comment at 7:05, 7:10, and we wanted to take the uncertainty out. But I heard from 3 residents this week that said, "What are you doing?" I want that at the beginning, so when I comment in public comment, I can comment on it. So I didn't expect that sort of response, and I've got to listen to that when I get it. So I guess if our residents prefer to be at the beginning, I would be in favor of undoing my decision in the retreat to actually bring it back to the beginning. But I would suggest to us as trustees to actually maybe agree to a 5-minute report, and that beyond that, we will do what you asked, meaning we will forward, if, for example, Dr. Cog is particularly complex, rather than trying to explain all those complexities, up here, we'll just give the summary, and the rest will be augmented somehow.
Right.
So that you're adding 35 minutes to the meeting.
At max, if people
well,
don't.
But I think what some people are looking for is a dialogue. They're looking for reports on things, and they're looking to have this dialogue. And I'm really concerned that that 35-minute allocation then turns into an hour and a half. The other, in the beginning of this meeting, what I asked Mr. Magley to do was announcements, and I do think it's critical to have event announcements at the beginning of the meeting. So and perhaps there's a hybrid of trustee announcements that we can somehow make that. I'm not saying we should scrap the whole thing like it was, but I'd really like to find a way for us to get that into a tighter time frame and not have people sitting here for 35 minutes for kind of because it just turns into unscripted, non-agenda items that, other comments. Trustee
I think
Giselle.
that if we spent, committed to spend no more than 15 minutes on that, and if there needs a further, and I'm talking about 2 minutes per person.
That's more like it.
If you can't I attended this is a major issue. And then if there needs more discussion, then we can move that to the end of the meeting. And then that gives the opportunity for the public to say, okay, here's some discussion points that I might want to be part of. The other thing is we don't make a decision when we give our report, so if a resident wants further discussion, then that's a prime time for them to come and say, I'd like that on the agenda for next meeting, where we actually get into that as an agenda item and have a conversation about whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Cirilli?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, I am skeptical that we will stay disciplined in our announcements of what we've been doing. I've just
See
sat
that red
here.
light over there? We might have a red light on our
I've sat here so many evenings and listened to long reports when we have long agenda ahead of us and gotten frustrated. And I really support putting this at the end of the meeting right now. And so far, I've heard a strong objection tonight, and Trustee Pennington reporting 3 or 4 people. 3. So that's not compelling to me. I'd like to try this, and
Trustee
So
Burgess.
I fully support what Rita said. I think that's the logical, seriously, I was half kidding about the light, but we
I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
I
2
think
minutes.
2 and
So that's how we
beep
monitor
us.
ourselves,
I have-
It takes 2 minutes to report what we did, and if I have a question for you, Matt, it shouldn't take me 2 minutes to ask that question and get a quick answer, or if you don't have the answer, so I'll get it for you. I
but
like
is
the
it-
weekly digest from you, because I don't know if everybody knows that, and you have good information there, so I would want you to present that as well. But I'm okay moving it to the front, if we do it the way that Rita talked about.
I have my notes here for my report that I was giving tonight. I have 7 lines typed, 7 sentences. If I can't say that in 2 minutes, then I shouldn't be here. And it's on Dr.Cog, which was a very detailed, complicated issue, which I'm not going to describe, but I'm going to bring out the issue. I can say my seven sentences here. Actually, 5 are on Dr.Cog and 2 were on the poop tour. So, and I think we should be able to do that. If we can't say, this is what I've been about, and then if there's another question that comes of that, and if we need to, then that gives an opportunity. But I too am with Joe and Clint. I like the idea of further discussion at the end of the meeting. If we're the ones that want to extend the meeting and stay here late, then that should be on us.
So I think I'd be willing to try that. I think the hardest thing, though, will be during those 2 minutes, someone is going to say something that prompts a question of the manager, the attorney, of one of the others. And that's where, that's going to be the struggle, is to, okay, we can't.
That's why you're paid the big bucks, Clint, to manage that.
Well, I'm doing my best.
Well, we can all police each other, too.
Okay, Trustee Hanson.
So let's stop and think about what the purpose is of the reports and comments. It's not necessarily for our benefit, it's for the public. And if we extend and it goes longer than our 2 minutes and we say, well, we're going to move to the end of the meeting, then all of a sudden we're potentially eliminating some of the public to participate or watch it on TV for whatever reason. To me, it's not an issue. I think the issues are to keep the meetings at a minimum is amongst the board, because there's board members that tend to be a little bit longer-winded. And I think that that's where we need to focus, not excluding the public and our reports to the public. We need to give them the chance to say what they want to say. We don't have a lot of residents that come up and take more than 5 minutes. I don't think that's an issue either. But we need to give them the courtesy of letting them know what we're doing, just like Gladys says. If we wait till 10:30 at night, we're going to be out of steam to do that. The reports aren't going to be as good. We need to keep it up front and just get it done. But let's all stick to that. I think 2 minutes is too short a time. There's some things that I think that will take. 2 minutes goes by quick. I mean, we've all been at the candidates forum, and 2 minutes goes by really quick.
Like I said, though, 5 sentences is what I wrote on I prepared my comments.
Right, okay,
wrote
so
5 sentences.
Chris makes a good point.
So let me
Some of
finish
us
what
go
I'm
to
saying.
5 meetings a week.
I understand,
Between
but there's some
meetings.
things that are really, really interesting. For instance, when Joe Sorelli or I go to the Rocky Flat Stewardship Council meeting, and we say, hey, they're talking about a controlled burn. What? Should we wait and not let the public know about that until later in the meeting?
You can say that, but you don't have to go through the whole meeting.
Well, but
and
no,
discuss
there's
it for 10
questions. What
minutes.
happened at the meeting? There's times that we don't want to limit ourselves, and we need to keep it up front. And if we want to say 3 or 4 minutes max, or 5 minutes max, great. But you know, who takes that much time? Very few of us do.
I don't say that there's a strict rule, and that's why I don't like the lights, frankly, because I think that, we are here for the public, but I think we should police ourselves in saying, this
Agreed.
is the norm.
Absolutely
This
agree.
is a standard, this is the norm. Sometimes, naturally, it's going to take more of a discussion, or if you have 5 meetings that week, it's kind of probably 2 minutes per meeting. But I just feel that in any regular, organized, structured activity, we should be able to limit ourselves to.
So, first of all, it has been used for self-promotion. If we're honest with ourselves, I'm not going to name any names, but it has been used for self-promotion, which I totally abhor. So that's one thing. So let's keep that in mind. And I hope that, this board is not going to happen with the members of this board. Number 2, who's going to monitor, who's going to police somebody else? Am I going to say that's enough, Sandy?
Have I heard that?
I mean, yes, but do you want me to say that?
No.
See, I don't want to say that.
Okay.
So I think the policing has to be, we police ourselves.
I think, though, that we've got to have timeframes in the agenda. Otherwise, we're just kind of all over the board, so.
But what is wrong with having reports and comments, a block of a half an hour? If obviously the community, some members of the community have chosen to speak out, and Rita had 4 fingers up, they value that. And perhaps a half an hour for 7 people, maybe you're 2 minutes, maybe Chris has attended 4 meetings that week and he's 5 minutes and whatnot. But if we say a half an hour and we are mindful of each other, and I don't want a false decision made here tonight, because we've got a really short meeting here to where our reports and comments are coming at 8:30, which is almost unheard of. Imagine reports and comments at 1 a.m. after some of those PD meetings. But we've got a lot of meetings go on to 10:30.
Our meetings are going to end by 10:30, so that's not going to happen that late.
Well, I think we've gone from 2 minutes to now a half hour.
Well,
14 minutes to,
well,
basically saying 4 minutes each.
I originally said 5 minutes each, so
I
that was
just think
35.
that's too long. I just don't think.
I do too.
I just don't think people.
Who takes that long? I never take that. I don't think. Do I take that long?
I don't think we want to get into that right now.
I know, but I'm just saying that. I think that's
no value to get into
that's out
that,
of the
but
norm.
having sat out there
Yeah.
and listened to some of the reports that are given in here, they're of no value, and just to report what you've been to is of no value.
Thanks.
And so
Right.
if we report that we've been here and there and there, and everybody was fun and everything was wonderful, that's one thing. But if we say, here's the issue that came out of this meeting, then I would spend 5 minutes on that. But to say, okay, I was here, 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 done. That's all it should be. You know, and we sometimes have gone on for, just like we are now. We go on for minutes and minutes and minutes about something that could be 2 sentences and you're done.
And there are people in the audience that, yeah, I agree with you 100%. So
I'd be good with the 2 minutes.
As the
Yeah.
norm,
As
try
the-
to say,
as the norm.
give your report in 2
we have
minutes.
to be
and
more disciplined.
And naturally, there's going to be times when it's going to take more.
But the other thing I would challenge us to try to move past is the, trying to solve, whether it's a resident's need or issue or something, that, I've seen that several times sitting in the audience, is there's this desire to solve problems during reports, questions, and issues. And it's an unscripted agenda.
We had an uncomfortable exchange between you, as a new mayor, and Gladys, right? So I think any resident that comes up and asks questions has a right to know when the answer will be given. Not necessarily that they're given an answer right there and then, because a lot of times we don't have the answer and we shouldn't, say something off the top of our heads. But I think to say, but then, and we need to agree that as a board, Gladys or the next Gladys, by the next meeting, you will have your answers. Or by next Monday, or by next, let's
By the
agree.
next meeting is reasonable for staff, because we don't know what the issue or question
Okay.
is.
And that's why
But
I
can we
can't
agree
give-
that, is that reasonable?
But if we know the answer now, why not give it?
If we know the answer now, we give
Yeah.
it, but if we don't, can we say you will get the
absolutely.
answer by next?
I didn't know the answer. I don't know that it's fair to put staff on the spot to provide an answer.
I mean, typically, what I see in a lot of municipalities is the resident or someone from the public will come down, they'll make their comment on the issue or issues, or they'll make a comment about something that's not on the agenda or have a question. The staff will make note of that, and then at some point later, whatever time frame the city has set for themselves, they'll get back to that resident.
But let's let them know.
But not at the meeting.
Let's let them know what that time frame is. So if it's by the next meeting, you'll have your answers, then I'm good with it.
And I'm good communicating that as long as that's.
Part of the issue is some questions require more work than others.
Right, of
And
course.
some could be a quick snap answer. I mean, what I think works for most of our clients is when they say, we've got the list of your questions, staff will get you an answer as soon as they can, talk to staff after the meeting or tomorrow, and make arrangements. I mean, that way there's no artificial deadline put in place, and you have a policy that we generally will try and get you the answers by our next meeting.
And Jeff, can we encourage maybe our town folks to maybe put those questions ahead of time in writing or bring them to the staff like before the Monday meeting?
I mean, there's no rule against that. That would probably get them the answers quicker than going up on
That's
the
what I'm saying.
stand and doing it.
That's my point.
Yeah.
But some residents
Want to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
They want.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Trustee.
So the questions were asked in public, and I think they have to be answered in public. And so, one, I'm a firm believer, if you know the answer right now, to answer it right now. And I would hope that Matt always has the opportunity to answer it right now if you've got the answer.
I think I need direction from the board. Do you want me to answer it, or do you want to take the policy which I think is probably a better approach? Staff will get back to you as soon as we can, and then at the next meeting I can, because I always put in the digest, board follow-up, what the answer was, and then at the next meeting I can just restate that when I go over the digest.
I think that's a good way to do it.
That's fine with me, but the
I
point
like that
is
approach.
that you actually have a part of your reports, you can go on for more than 2 minutes and say, these 4 questions were.
That's good, Tim, I like that.
Were asked last week, last meeting, and the answers are et cetera, so that there is, everybody grows used to, the public grows used to asking the question and then having it answered.
Okay. Good. I like that.
You have people that.
Yeah, I got a comment, but go ahead, Chris,
Okay,
if you.
so just along that, I think to diffuse that, because that was going south really quick, to diffuse that a little bit more, give some kind of response. I really think that we have to give some kind of response. All we have to say is, we haven't seen any permits to tear that place down. We would like to see this to get done right away, but we'll get back to you. I think we have to give some kind of response to say that we're working on it.
Again, I think that it just goes to that, let's try to solve let's try to solve issues on the spot. And I just
But
don't
that
think we
question,
can.
that same question has been asked 4 or
Yeah.
5 times, and we do have information on
But
it.
I think, though, that this method that he just described is
I can live with that.
the best way to do it.
I would just like a little process improvement with that. I think, too, that if we have the answer, a simple one, yes, no, tomorrow, yesterday, or whatever the answer is, we should say it. I don't care who says it, but I would hope that it would be the town manager that would be the one giving those answers more than some of us up here. I don't even know what the question is, I'm just saying. What was asked tonight, though, I think we did a very poor job as a board letting the resident know when or how we would get back to her.
That's because we hadn't had this discussion yet. but-
Yeah, I know. So I'm just
We
saying,
should have
I'm
had
doing
this
process
in mind.
improvement here.
I know.
I'm saying that we need to do it better next time in that saying, and what I would hope to see is that in a case like that, a resident, I don't care who they are, and they come and they say, this is a problem I have, this is an issue I have. And then they're looking at everybody for something, and I would like staff to say, I will contact you tomorrow, or would you rather, or one of two things. I will contact you tomorrow, and we'll talk about this some more, resident A, or we will provide that answer at our next meeting on December 8th, in this case. Those are the two choices. I will contact you tomorrow.
Well, maybe not tomorrow.
Huh?
May not be tomorrow.
Contact them to talk to them about it. I will contact you to talk about this further tomorrow. Because tonight we gave nothing to
Right.
them about when will we get back to you? Will we contact you to talk to you tomorrow?
I don't know if I would put him on the spot that tomorrow, every Tuesday morning, he's got a slew of questions to answer and talk to a whole bunch of people because he has a town to run. But I think we would
Well, how many
contact him.
times do we have a slew of questions,
Well, we will-
So pick the day. I'll
I think
gladly
by
contact you Tuesday about.
I think we'll what I heard is we'll contact you as soon as possible
That's
to
better.
clarify questions, and we will get back to you by the next meeting.
That's
But
it.
you have a lot of people, and I heard this when I was walking around campaigning. I had at least 8 people I can count that said they put in writing or came to a town board and asked a question and never got follow-up.
Well, that's our job,
And-
is to make sure that's done.
Right, so that's what we're trying to do here.
Right.
And so we need to do a better process of responding. And I know we tend to say, well, the same people are asking the same question, so we don't need to respond to them. I don't care who it is asking the
My
question.
staff always responds.
Yeah. I'm not
Even if it's the same
I'm not
question.
throwing stones. I'm just saying, how do we make sure that the process is more known to the residents of how they're going to be contacted and how they're going to be followed up with?
Trustee Strelli.
We've had this dialogue before. We've had these questions come into us at meetings over and over, and I don't support encouraging the process of coming to a town board meeting and asking for a resolution of my particular problem right now by the board, which is what was going on, and it's gone on and before, and it will go on again. And we have asked the people that come and do that to get with the town manager or staff and exactly what we're saying, and they have followed up, and they have resolved the issues. And, we're just,
But Joe, the frustration today was that it escalated because she was asking for, when will you get me the answer? Not
no, she
necessarily-
said, when was it done?
No,
Initially,
she asked
initially she
when.
did that, but
When
then
will-
the escalation was, well, when will I get the answer? And that's kind of bred her frustration.
And any of
So-
us would have responded in some,
But I
You
agree
know.
with you. We don't have to, we
Yeah.
push the button, the answer comes out just because somebody's
Now,
asking a
first of all, the
question.
process isn't supposed to work that we resolve town issues for every
I-
individual
I
at board
agree.
meetings.
I agree.
There's a staff, there's a way of doing things. And this is jumping to the head of the class.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, I
What
think
we're
it
saying
is.
when
It
will they
absolutely
respond?
is jumping to
That's
the
a
head of the
question. The
class, and
only
it's
question
happening
was, when will
time
I
and time
get a
again.
response?
One at a time.
Yeah.
Trustee Hanson.
So I think and maybe she asked this, but I don't think she did, but the better question would have been, what's the update on that property on Third Avenue? Because we often have questions during our reports and comments. I'll say, Matt, can you give me an update on the street project up on Denslow? Now, if we're saying that we're not going to try and solve that tonight, and you're not going to give me an update on it, you're going to get back to me tomorrow, then that's not, to me, that's not acceptable. I'd like to get an update on it, because we've got residents asking questions about it.
But see, I think on a question like that, let's individually email Matt the day before the meeting and get.
But that's.
Alex isn't here, I may not have an answer.
I totally understand it, but that's the beauty of having this meeting in this forum on TV, that I can ask you that, and you can say, I don't have an answer to that right now, but I'll get back to you. Great, that's all we need. I'm just asking for an update.
Is that acceptable to you?
That's acceptable to me, and I think that the same thing with Gladys. If she would have said, what's the status on this house on Third Avenue? We don't know. We're trying to figure this out. We'll get back to you on it. I think that's, and then she would have said when. You said, well, we'll reach out in the next couple days.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's the policy we're taking.
Yes.
But I don't want us to get in the habit of when somebody asks a question, we're not going to give them any answer, so we'll get back to you in a couple days. If we know something, if there's some progress, great, let's give them what progress we know. If we know the complete answer, let's give them the complete answer.
But I think we're not going to know until we start polling people for that answer. And that's where this 15-minute, 30-minute, whatever, it turns into an hour and a half.
But can we defer to Matt, though, rather than polling us? Like, say, Matt, do you have an answer,
Yeah.
yes or no?
Sometimes there is an answer.
Even if it's just an update, just to know that if there's no progress, great, let us know. But if there is some update, sometimes that's all it takes for some residents, is just an update to know that something's happening.
Like, I'll give you on the receiving end as a board, Randy came up the second time and shared something, the progress that had been made, which additional information we didn't have before. That made me feel better.
Yeah.
Well, that's because we asked it in the right way. We have to ask it in the right way. Remember how I asked him, now when are you going to start work on an FTP 1 and 1A, and when are you going to start
but he provided
Main Street?
information that
And
was
he provided
useful to us.
good,
Yes.
useful information based on the question being asked in a way that could get you an appropriate answer. And so, and we have that problem with residents too. They'll ask a question or make a comment, a statement, because it's emotional for them to have to come up here and make that comment. All I would like to see, and I think we're all saying the same thing, is when a resident comes up, I don't care who it is, if they have a question or a concern or an issue and they're emotional about it, we owe them, I will get back to you. I would like to say not as soon as possible, but I would like to give a firm commitment. I will contact you to talk more about this tomorrow, or I will get you the answer in 2 weeks.
I don't want to do that tomorrow because I think it's putting too much pressure.
Well, I'm just
This could
saying
be a
that as an
complicated question.
example.
They may need to do research for a
It
week
doesn't
or
mean
two,
it has to
so.
be tomorrow. It could be.
I think as
I'll
soon as
contact you
as
in
soon as
January.
possible
I would
is.
take the word tomorrow.
Okay, well then, as long as I get back to them as soon as possible, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no
Do we-
later than the next meeting.
And no later than the next meeting. I'm
That's
okay
fair.
with that.
You got 2 weeks?
Okay. Are we good?
So I'm not clear, and I'm sorry, because it sounds like we're done. Do you want me to respond to the resident?
If you have the answer, yes. If you have.
I do.
Or if there's any progress, any tidbit, maybe you don't have the total answer, but even a little bit. And if they ask more, say, well, what more do you have? I don't have any more, and we'll have to get back. We'll have to follow up with you.
I mean, most residents contact us outside of the board meeting, and we get back to them. But if they
Yeah.
come down and put us on the spot, if I have something, if the board would like, I can share that. But I can't guarantee that I'll have a response.
That's okay. You
That's
can
fine.
say.
No
I'm not gonna
guarantees
get- That's
required.
okay.
Okay.
I think we're.
Okay.
And then the other thing was the 10-minute presentations and 5 slides.
Okay, so you missed it because you weren't here, you had to leave, but that came out of the tremendous, long-winded RCAC presentation from last time, they were supposed to be 15 minutes. Like, the best presentations are hers. Heather comes up here, Chamber of Commerce, within 5 minutes, she reports, it's direct, it's crystal clear, we get it, we enjoy it, and then she moves on.
Yeah.
That's the ideal. If they can mirror that would be great. We don't want to have on the agenda 5 minutes or 10 minutes allotted and take 45 minutes. It kills the meeting.
The intent, when I brought that issue up, is when a applicant or a presenter asks for time on our board, time to present an issue to our board, they should know up front how much time they have for their presentation and how much time we need to ask questions and whatnot, and somehow that got summarized and give them 10 minutes to make a presentation. Perhaps that was a little too cut and dried because some presentations may be more complex and some presentations may be more simple, so maybe the 10 minutes. But where this where the indoor survey results got lumped into this, I think was inappropriate. The fact is, that isn't a presenter coming to us asking for time.
We're asking them.
We are asking for a presentation. So I do think it's important. From Chris Cares and ProStack and the survey results. And we've actually been struggling to find time. We've all expected that to be an hour to an hour and a half presentation, maybe even more. So
Presentation or total discussion?
No, total thing. So I talked to Matt this afternoon. It was never my intent in bringing that up. I don't think the intent of our discussion that they would be fit into 10 minutes. I do, however, think that is appropriate to tell Chris Cares and his survey group and whoever's presenting, your presentation should be no more than X based on Matt's best judgment. Because what we don't want to have happen is an hour and a half allotted for the full discussion of everything, and Chris Cares taking up an hour and 15 minutes in a presentation. I think it's reasonable to say you've got the first 20 minutes or whatever, and the board needs extra time, et cetera, et cetera. But it was not my intent when we call for a presentation that we've waited a long time for to shoehorn people into
So is that slotted to be during presentation section of the meeting, the Chris Cares presentation?
Well, Matt and I were talking. He actually put it in the context of the December 8th meeting, but he and I chatted, and I said I'd bring it forth today, and Matt can bring it forth today, is perhaps doing that. I thought it was going to be in the work session of a previous meeting, and you asked for it to be moved to a later meeting. I thought it was going to be in the work session, so perhaps we could meet at 5:30 and go to 7 on that presentation, and then have the regular meeting thereafter.
Okay.
What was your...
Well, that was my exact thought. I thought we were going to do it in a work session, but have an extended work session. But back to the RCAC presentation, why do we give this indoor survey presentation an hour and a half and RCAC only 10 minutes? Why wouldn't we reevaluate that and say RCAC, they need more time than just 10 minutes for that? I think even if we can...
It took close to an hour.
Well, her presentation was an hour.
No, the waste diversion thing a couple of meetings ago. That whole waste diversion master plan took forever.
So when she presented, it was an hour of slides?
It was about 40 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that we don't need death by PowerPoint. And one of the most irritating things is in any presentation, whether it's corporate America or in here, is to read. We all graduated elementary school. To have slides that have so much information and read them word by word, sentence by sentence.
No, I agree.
I might as well go for a walk and come back in half an hour when the meeting's over. We know what it was on the screen. We can read.
And we read it in our packet.
And we've already read it, right? We don't need to go through that. It's boring and it's a waste of time.
I think that's where we came down to after our discussion last time, Chris, when you had to leave, was that, because where we talked about the 5 slides, everybody knows when you have a slide, it takes 2 minutes. It doesn't matter. So if you have 5 slides, you're going to be 10 minutes. And so if we said 10 minutes, I said, that's only 5 slides. I don't think I've seen anybody ever do a presentation in 5 slides in front of this board. But we should have better ability to judge how much time would be appropriate to provide. Because an applicant, we're never going to say to an applicant, you only got 10 minutes.
Right.
You can't do that, So, and even like for an applicant, I think of like your survey that was done. The survey that was done is more like an applicant. You can't just say 10 minutes. I don't think you can say to anybody 10 minutes, because that's only 5 slides.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of discipline to do a 10-minute presentation and get all the right information in there. So what we were saying was that even as we are representatives to the committees, and we ask a committee to come and do a presentation, let's understand how much time we think they should be allowed and help them get their presentation
But
within
how do we
that
know
timeframe.
that?
Huh?
How do we know that RCAC's going to need 5 minutes or 25 minutes?
Oh, well, we should know from being part of that, working with them and staff working, the staff representative working with them too. This is a big deal or a medium-sized deal or a smaller deal. And I think that was the thing, is that people, I think, I wasn't on this side of the board at that discussion of that presentation, but obviously, there was a miscommunication about how big that presentation should be and what was expected. So we just don't want that to happen in the future.
How do we know that there was a miscommunication? There's a board member that's the liaison for that committee, and I would imagine that she was partially driving that.
Well, that's what we said now, that
So-
as a board, we're going to commit.
That's what we don't want to happen.
Rather,
We're going to commit that.
It sort of
This way.
devolved because we had a lot of issues to deal with that night. The origin of this discussion is for us as a board and via our town manager to set the expectation with the presenter of what time roughly they will have and what time the board will need. When we don't set that expectation, people seem to err on the side of overdoing it quite a bit rather than underdoing it. So that expectation does them a favor, and it certainly does us a big favor. Whenever I make a presentation to senior muckety-mucks, I know I'm only going to have 15 minutes, or I'm going to have 20, or I'm going to have 25. And I abide by that because it's respectful of the governing body's time.
Trustee
So I make a proposition perhaps that Heather should teach a class, do the presentations, and if they graduate from your class, they can come present in front of the board, so.
I think anyone presenting needs to have some guidelines on how long.
Right.
And I think we as a board need to set a limit, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is. I don't care what the issue is, it should be able to be boiled down into that. If there's more supporting information needed, that's what's in our packet. There's other ways to get us more than 15 minutes of information. So I really think that we should pick a number and
But
then
a
let's.
small issue is how many minutes? A medium issue
But see,
is
that's where,
whatever.
who defines that? And where?
The dog waste issue today was a small issue.
Absolutely,
How
but-
many minutes should that have gotten?
About as many as it got.
thought it was perfect.
I mean, it was
How
perfect.
many did it get?
I have no idea, but it was perfect.
It was like 5 minutes. But see, I don't think we need to task staff or the committees or anyone else with defining, okay, you've got a big issue, you've got a small issue. We've just got a maximum number of minutes.
And what do you
And-
think that should be, Clint?
I think it should be 15 minutes.
I was comfortable
So
with.
the maximum time is 10:30. When that 10:30 hits, if you want to stick to the 10:30, we have to be more efficient.
10
More discipline.
to 15 minutes. I mean, I've heard 10 minutes mentioned and, on it. I
10
would,
goes by pretty fast, so
I would say 10 to 15, and it really should be 5 to 15, like for tonight.
I would say
mean,
5 to 15, absolutely.
And- But I don't, again,
Just
I don't
patient.
think that, yeah, Trustee Sorrell.
Well, another part of this is our discipline. And that is that if we're going to try to have people have limited time for their presentation, we should let them give their presentation before we start questioning them and tearing into the presentation.
That's
Because
easier to do if we know it's only going to go.
It's almost
Because you ask
impossible.
questions, so yeah, no, right.
I mean, you could, we used to do moot court in law school, and you'd never get to your argument because the questions would throw you all over the place, and that's part of the game. We shouldn't be playing that game with people that are coming here presenting to us. And
I agree.
I'm agree with that. I agree with that.
Let's have the presentations, then do questions, yes.
So if there's a presentation that somebody expects is going to go longer than 15 minutes, they say, I need a half hour, are we going to say, well, let's do that in a work session?
I mean, we need to manage the
So-
time, we need to go to Matt and see, is there a half an hour for the December 8th meeting, yes or no? He knows more.
So the RCAC presentation should have actually been done in a work session and had a discussion with RCAC.
And the presentation should never have gone on 40 minutes. We know that it could have easily been one of those 15-minute it should have been a 15-minute
And
presentation.
then we have 10 minutes to maybe ask questions.
Right.
And go. I mean, that was,
I think 15 is a good guideline, but I don't think we should be inflexible. And at the point of your question, Chris, the indoor survey results was never intended to fit into that scenario.
Right.
Just as I don't believe a PD presentation as well, but I think there are some guidelines to an applicant that, the point is, it almost becomes a strategy at some point. If you have the floor for the first hour, we're going to wear down, and we're going to be less diligent in the questioning the second hour. So I am fully in support of taking control of the process, but nothing we do here tonight won't have to be tweaked.
I don't want to minimize
We'll have
RCAC's
to
presentation, though. I mean, I thought it was long, but they put a lot of work into that, and that is actually a big program that they're proposing, and there could be a lot of implications to the town. So I think that we owed them more than 10 minutes or something like that. That should have been a really good discussion that we had together, which I think we ended up having.
But it was a bad night for that
yeah,
presentation.
that was not exactly.
And it was not in the form to command 2 board meetings on, which it had already commanded 2 board meetings
Yeah,
on.
you're
There
right.
have to be interim steps to get it refined enough to have an official board meeting.
Well, that's the work session then I think you're talking about, so.
And there's a lot of pressure that night because it was the last night from the previous board. There was a lot
It's
of
also-
pressure to get approval, or, I mean, there was a lot of pressure, so I just don't want that to go.
It's also liaison, staff liaison, and perhaps board liaison guidance in the committee structure, within the committee meetings, to say this isn't fine-tuned enough yet to go to the board. So obviously that was an
Have we decided on
anomaly.
this, where this is going? The reports and questions, is that, are we, for future meetings, early, late?
I
thought we were moving it back
We
up.
moved it back, and we're going to do 2 minutes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So issues, reports, questions, and issues moves back to its normal time, and
Okay.
with a 2-minute guideline per
Okay.
individual.
Can we bring back the cookies?
No.
You have to bring the
They're out
cookies
there.
back.
There's
Yeah.
cookies.
Everything's out there. Everything's out there tonight.
Yeah.
No more
Chris,
food?
you should
there.
never
No more
miss
food?
a retreat, because
No,
we
the
made
food
a
is
lot
in
of
the kitchen.
decisions
It's
without
out
you
there.
here.
Okay. And do we
I
have,
know what you guys are up to.
do we have good,
We'll make those decisions when he's not here.
are we good? Matt, do we have good
Yes.
direction
Yeah.
for you on the 15-minute, 5 to 15
Well,
minute?
it's a living thing, too. I mean, so let's not get so hung up on
Oh, sure.
making a rule that we can't modify. This is for everybody's best
Sure.
interest.
This is difficult for staff. So I think our direction will be 15 minutes. If you need more, you need to let us know, and we have to have a discussion with the board.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah,
But try and
I
keep
don't
it
know
closer
the
to
last
5.
part. Sorry, the discussion with the board, I think you should be able to decide. If they want more, you can make that decision. I mean, that's what.
Based
we're all
on the gravity of
professionals,
the
yeah.
matter.
You want Matt to make the decision, not us?
If he can.
Why come to us on all those administrative procedural issues?
Because it's your guideline.
Yeah, no, but
15
I'm
minutes.
saying is that we also give you the latitude to make a decision, how much time you think would be appropriate for us if
But
if
then,
you think.
but then that puts him in the position of, if he says no, then somebody says, well,
Well, Matt didn't give me
he's-
enough time. If
Yeah,
Matt
Matt
didn't
didn't
give me
have
enough
time.
time.
Individual board
Okay, well, you can put that in your.
More
Right,
time.
you're right, that's what's gonna happen next week.
You can put that in your
Now
digest.
they got 25 minutes, which is fine.
You can
So
put
no,
that in your
I-
digest.
That's what you guys want.
I think you're right. I think it's got to come back to us. If somebody needs more time, it's got to come back to us, and we've
Well,
got to give the direction.
And by
that-
the way, that
public
can-
meeting?
No, that can happen in an email. Before
Okay.
the meeting, it's like, this person requested half an hour, we've allowed 15, how do you guys feel? We take a vote, say, give them half an hour or no? 15 minutes, that's all.
Well, I think we made significant progress, guys, already, having it appended to the weekly digest, the agenda appended to the weekly digest and to the previous meeting's agenda. And in that, he can say presentation on 15 minutes recommended. et cetera, et cetera. And we can, if he says 20 minutes recommended, fine, we've been alerted, we're okay, no discussion needed, right? Okay, 25 minutes recommended on a grave issue.
That's what I'm saying. You have the latitude. Why should we have to make a
Right.
vote on how long a presentation?
We can have veto power, but we don't have to
For the
get
indoor
involved.
survey, I'm hearing 20 minutes? Is that what I heard?
For the presentation portion?
I'd really defer to Matt, or
Yeah, we should have deferred to
Chris.
Patrick on that.
I defer to Chris or Patrick on what they need.
For the level of detail what I'm expecting is going through hundreds of pages of report with, 80 questions asked, bringing forth the relevant cross tabs and the relevant summary. I would expect Chris to require half an hour to present to us, and that leaves us an hour within an hour and a half format to ask him all the questions we need.
We can get it done
So,
from 5:30 to 7.
I think there's no question, we can get it done in an hour and a half.
Mhm.
That's fine. Let's not limit ourselves on anything like that. Let him
Right.
do his
I'm okay meeting
presentation.
at 5:30 if we need
Right.
to. Let's do that.
But if we give him the first half hour or less as required to summarize the major findings.
And we'll all be quiet while they're doing their presentation
Right.
and
And I
document our
like the
questions.
or less. We need to add the or less regardless of.
Right.
You
That
got 10
that
minutes
the
or
premium
less.
is put on less rather than on more.
Yeah, because if you give more, they're going to take more. Right? That's what I.
Chris, are you good with
making a
that?
motion, or-
I am. No, I mean, I
Guidance?
asked my questions and made comments. Now I'd like to do reports.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
Are we doing reports or are we done?
We're not done. I don't know if I can keep it within 2 minutes, but.
You can.
2 minutes.
I attended a ProStack meeting last Wednesday night, and the primary discussion was the 2015 work plan that we'll see soon. That's all.
Oh my God, this is awesome. This is the way to do it.
This is how I always do it, isn't it?
Good.
Okay, we won't say anymore.
Usually you have more meetings, Chris. That was the only one.
Okay.
Trustee Dozell.
Okay, so I want to thank Martin and Alex and his staff for the tour of the water and wastewater plants last week. We went on, it was great to see the operations of how that works. For a small town, our treatment plants are a big deal. I attended the DRCOG meeting on November 12th. The greatest discussion involved amendments to policy on second phase project selection and funding for transportation improvement programs. Why this is a big deal is because we put in a request for some of that funding. It's $43 million over the next 5 years, and we want to get our portion of it for Superior. The smaller local governments, less than 10 million sales tax, which is what we're in, are asking that not only do we consider the TIP funding, the Transportation Improvement Program funding out of DRCOG, the dollars that have gone to the small towns, but also the CDOT and RTD funding, because otherwise we might not get the money, because we've gotten too much for the size of our town and the amount of money we got. But if we throw those other monies in, other towns will drop out. That's the expectation. So we're going to be working on this again next meeting on December 17th about how to actually score who gets what money. And it's a big deal for us because we get three proposals in.
Thanks. Trustee Cirilli.
Two things. Historical Commission meeting last week. They too are working on their work plan. And the two big things they talked about was the Guess the Light program. They're working in conjunction with the Youth Activities Board and Group, and because that's sort of designed to bring attention to the fire truck and the need for funds for the fire truck. And they're going to not open the museum on that Saturday in the morning, but instead open the museum during that event in that time frame, so there can be a museum opening at the same time for people that attend. They can also go visit the museum. The second thing that they did was pass a motion to pursue crowdfunding through an online organization called GoFundMe to seek funding for the fire truck restoration.
Great idea.
They're going to try to do this in phases, the first phase of which is to raise about $10,000, or maybe 15, which they think is necessary to get the fire truck running safely on the roads, and then they'll go further by gussying it up after they can get it fixed up enough to be running. So that's their big thing. The second meeting I attended was RCAC meeting, which was on the 13th, right before the appreciation dinner. And they too are working on their 2015 work plan. And the approach they're taking, based upon what they took from the meeting from us at our last board meeting when they looked at their overall plan, was to seek what they thought were the most bang for the buck, big hitters out of the plan they put forward, and try to get those into the work plan. And so that we'll see more on that. The low-cost big hitters is what they're really going for.
Trustee Pennington?
OSAC meeting, same thing, working on work plan, and they actually spent a lot of time on a mission statement. Obviously, OSAC is searching for purpose, and so I think that's going to come before the board in January. I think we're going to have to get quite involved in that issue, is given where that's evolved, given the fact that most of the land has been purchased, what is the ongoing mission of OSAC? So just be prepared for that down the road.
Sandy, was there discussion at all about merging the two advisory committees?
It's always percolating there, and I actually think the board's going to have to provide leadership on that. I think we really do need to tackle head-on how these two committees should function, and if they should become one or remain two. But if they remain two, there's got to be clear purpose for both. And so this evolution is not unanticipated. It ties into the tax and the collecting of the sales tax, and as the purpose of that sales tax is mostly served, what do we do with that? So just sort of a warning that this is an issue.
So is that something that, so you said you recommend the board that tackles that, but do we get together, both advisory committees together for a dinner and discuss?
Well, I think we need to sit down at some point among ourselves and say, what is a productive way to bring everybody to the table, and with the hope of moving forward on it. And I've got 3 or 4 different scenarios that have been percolating in my mind. I think all of them have merit. So down the road, if we can, and maybe it's when we receive the work plans. And we take a look at the work plans in January. Rocky Flats no burn letter. I sent you all the Leroy Moore thing, and I'm a huge proponent of the no burn letter. So I haven't read the exact wording, Matt, so I'll get back with you on my comments of that, but I do think we need to weigh in on it. I am uncomfortable with voting on Planning Commission members next meeting. We just had 2 vacancies occur with the November 4th election. To have that decision made December 8th with no notice to the public that those 2 vacancies have occurred bothers me. Yes, we've got this ongoing system now, but I do think it should be a announcement over e-blast that says we have 2 vacancies, to see if anybody else comes forward. I like the caliber of the candidates we have. That's not the issue. My issue is one of public notice of 2 openings on a very important commission. So I'd like to see us delay the assignment of those positions until the first, are we not having that second meeting in December? So it would be the first meeting in January. And Clint, how do we deal with that if we want head nods?
Well, I think we should have a quick polling of trustees to see if there's agreement with that or not. And 'cause
Who agrees?
It's on the agenda.
Shake your head.
Agrees with?
With
Agrees with
postponing the assignment of those positions till the first meeting in January. And obviously, the e-blast to inform the community of those 2 vacancies.
Because you want more candidates to interview?
I want people to be properly informed. I don't want somebody to come to me saying, oh, I was interested in that, but I didn't even know.
We had a open house in October.
But that was before the election.
It was before the election.
Yeah, that's different. I agree with, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think an extra 2-3 weeks will make any difference, so let's do it. I'm in agreement with Sandy.
We may not shake any more applicants out, but at least we've done it the right
I
way.
had heard from the board in the past that you don't want vacancies
Right.
to stay vacant for a long period of time.
Not a long
So
period of time.
that we're just responding to your request to
Right.
get applicants in, interviewed, and appointed. So
Right.
just so everybody's clear on that.
No.
I'm pretty picky on this planning commission. I think it's worth the extra time. But, I mean, we do have
We may
some
not
good
get
candidates.
anybody over the
right.
holidays, but it's okay. We're not postponing it indefinitely, yeah. It's another,
I think in the last planning commission meeting that Clint and I attended, we had, as a planning commission at that time, said we weren't going to hold any meetings in December.
Yeah,
So the
so-
planning commission isn't even meeting this month of December, so it wouldn't really be, having the vacancies and wait until January is not a
so the head
big
nut is
issue.
then.
Well, it would have to be this, at earliest, second meeting in January, because we'd have to have, if there are new applicants, we'd have to have interviews.
That's true.
Right.
And I think by the end of January, they are going to be getting going with things, so
Right.
I would be in favor of moving ahead, not having the vacancies there.
I don't have strong feelings either way. I think we have three good candidates, which is nice.
And that's the other thing, is you kind of make them feel like, well, we're not good enough.
No, they were in the loop. These three were in the loop.
I think that we could make an announcement before the December 8th meeting. We could still interview somebody.
Yes, absolutely.
At the work session.
At the
And
December
so I
8th
think we
meeting.
should make a concerted communication yet in the next week or two.
Tomorrow.
And see if anybody, else will come out and schedule them, get them, if they can't get scheduled for that work session prior to the December 8th meeting, then they can't be considered. But
Right.
that would be
Okay, that's fair enough.
That's fair.
That would be the requirement.
That's
Yeah.
If nobody shows up, then, yeah. That's fair.
If we have too many candidates, though, for the 8th, because the hour and a half will be taken up with indoor survey.
Then we meet at
presentations.
5.
Yeah, we could meet earlier. if
Well,
necessary.
let's see if we have that problem.
If we have any candidates, we could schedule
Just
it.
letting you know.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Thank you, Matt.
I don't have a
Okay.
report anyway.
Okay, trustee Gregoris's report.
So November 12th, I attended a Traffic and Safety Committee meeting with Deb and with Sandy, primarily talking about the West Story Speak safety, the speeding safety. So Alex gave us a good report and some recommendations. I think this is coming before the entire board.
December 8th.
So we'll talk about it then, I guess. And a happy Thanksgiving.
Can I take 10 of your remainder?
Hey, wait a minute.
Gladys raised a good point. We said we were going to recognize the people involved in helping out with the fire, and we never did recognize them. Is that off the table?
Recognize them in what capacity? Like,
Good citizen awards from the chamber,
I'll have
or
to get with the chief of the fire department.
caught doing good.
Well, somebody has to submit those.
That's a good follow-up item for Matt's report next week, or next meeting. Okay?
Or the digest, next week's digest.
Or the digest. Okay.
Mayor, do you have?
That's it?
Yes, I have a few.
2 minutes.
Okay, starting now. I attended a ribbon cutting at Colorado Retina Associates at Discovery Office Park. They've got a wonderful new office. Volunteer appreciation dinner. I talked with the Kuffners of Superior Maintenance, and they agreed to let me have a ride-along in a snowplow truck, which is very exciting to me.
Can
I
we
went-
join? Is that something that's open?
I'm sure they
Just the
would.
mayor?
I'm sure they would allow others.
I'll give you a
but,
shovel.
I want to drive it.
I just want to ride.
I don't think they want any of us to drive it. I went to, on the 14th, I went to the Louisville's State of the City address. They do this every 6 months. It's the mayor and the town manager in coordination with their Chamber of Commerce, and I've been twice and think it's a great event, and I've already been in touch with Heather of our chamber about doing the same in Superior, and she's on board with that, so I think that's something to be coming, State of Superior.
Can you tell us how the state of Louisville is doing? I mean, the city of Louisville. What is the state of Louisville's
They haven't
economy
become a
or
state yet.
whatever?
One thing that stood out to me is they said 40% of their revenue comes from sales tax, which is vastly smaller than ours, so I wanted to...
What's the comparison with ours?
I think ours is 70%.
75%.
Wow.
Where does the rest come from?
That's, I didn't drill down to that, but that was...
Property taxes.
Largely, probably. Yeah.
That's where
That was an interesting point that
You
came
know
out of
that
it,
or
but...
something.
No, I know that, because
they
they
just-
have much more, quite a bit more homes and properties
Right.
than we do, and I think their mill levy is higher than ours, too.
Also went on the water sewer tour, took some great pictures, and look forward to sharing those. I've got full calendar filling up with the Metro Mayor's Caucus and the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition meetings, and I really look forward to representing Superior on a regional basis and look forward to going to all those meetings. The Metro Mayor's Coalition sent me a request for all metro area mayors to proclaim December 10th as Socket to Homelessness Day, which I've agreed to sign. And so on that day, we're encouraged not to wear socks, but rather donate a brand-new pair of socks to the homeless. So we'll
Just the mayor or the town?
everyone. But the photo op will be with the mayor with his feet on the desk with no socks on.
September?
December.
Oh, December.
December
Oh, I
10th,
said
I'm sorry.
September. I said-
I may
So
have-
we're going to put an e-blast out on that, or how are we going to inform our community?
I'll coordinate with staff and we'll put some publicity on that.
We could have the Christmas tree and the community decorates it with socks, like you used to do mittens.
That's right. Okay, that's it for me. Town manager?
Yeah, just real quick. We met with the new owners for Rock Creek Village, the shops. The Safeway owns their own building, but they own the shops there. So they're looking at doing some signage at each of the entrances to get exposure for the tenants, which is
It'd be good.
something we wanted
We
in
didn't
the
want
first
it for a
place.
long
So,
time, so
yeah, it was good.
And they're going to pay for it all. huh?
Yeah, so it
Good.
was a good meeting. Brain Bounce is opened in the marketplace. It's next to, kind of down from the barbecue restaurant there, so that's good news. We closed on the conservation easement with Boulder County for the open space purchase and received their payment for that open space purchase. Let's see. I think that was it.
Well done on the volunteer appreciation dinner.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was-
really fun.
Patrick and Katie, yeah, they did. They always do a wonderful job, Katie.
Phyllis, do you have anything? Okay.
How
Town
much time
attorney?
do I have?
2 minutes.
You get 1 minute.
Okay, well, actually, while we're discussing other things, I did take a look at that fee and lieu legislation on a liquor license, and frankly, I just gave you the wrong advice. It's basically state law, you have to be consistent with it, you cannot do less, you cannot change it to keep the authority to issue liquor licenses any less than the state allows. So my apologies.
So we have to align ourselves, you're saying, with the state?
Right, so yeah, basically, the proposed ordinance is basically requirement of statutory town, so I
we
apologize.
get to home rule.
for- Yeah.
So we don't have a choice then, we have to
No, you don't have a choice.
approve it.
Yep, so at your next meeting, hopefully you table it and you'll just approve it, because you don't have any option there. So-
Can we do that here tonight, or?
Yeah, can we
undo
approve
the
it now?
table?
Well, you're still in a meeting, you basically reopen that item if you wanted to.
And you're certain?
Positive. Yeah, yeah, my apologies for that. I just-
Let's just reopen it and take that off of,
Yeah.
take one more thing off the menu.
That was what the pros comment on the staff report that said, that you have to be that way. And the other thing I think to keep in mind, just to ease your minds, is that you don't have to give them the in lieu of.
That's right.
You don't have to grant the applicant or the
Well, the courts do
violation.
it though. We
But as you
don't
pointed out, it's
have
the
control.
municipal judge who's actually your authority, but
Right,
right. you
but
just
they
have-
don't have to.
Right.
They you know, they
Right.
still do that.
Okay,
So my apologies for that, I just read it wrong.
I'd like to make a motion, Town of Superior Ordinance Number O-11, Series 2000.
Well, because we took 11 for the other one.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
excuse me. O-12, Series 2014, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior amending Section 6-2-60, open paren A, of the Superior Municipal Code concerning the imposition of fines in lieu of suspension of a liquor license.
okay, motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Sorelli. All those in favor? Passes unanimous.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, anything further?
Not for me.
Meeting adjourned.
Nice job. Congratulations. First one's in the book.